Yeah. I don't you. I do.
Okay, let's just kind of informally get started here. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I hope you understand this is a work session, so this is a really informal way for us to discuss topics that have been put on the agenda previously, learn from each other, to talk about things. So this isn't gonna look like the board meeting will this at 6:30, right? It's different. So, but thanks for being here. Today, this morning, I've really been thinking a lot, as all of you, have been thinking a lot about what's on this agenda today, what's in the forefront of our minds for, it has been years, some of us years, right? But I really got thinking, I think we will understand each other's positions better if we understand each other's priorities. And all of us, as I'm reading these, they are all really good priorities. Throughout this meeting, rather than take time right now to go over them as a group, if we have time toward the end, maybe we'll go over them as a group, but take time to read those priorities and understand each other and where we're coming from a little bit better, because just what I've read so far, each of us have our students and our teachers and our district at the forefront of our minds, trying to make the best decision possible. And I just want you to know, I think you are all amazing, wonderful people who I appreciate your input and your differences, and when we debate something, we all learn something. And I just, thanks for being here and for putting in the time and thought, and I think the world of all of you. Brian is in Washington, D.C. for work meetings, so he won't be able to be with us today. He texted me this morning and asked to be able to. I did ask him to send me his priorities as well. I haven't gotten those from him yet. I'm sure he's busy. Taking a good discussion and a lot of learning, and here for it. Make good use of our time. Anyway, I think that Jamie's going to start us off. And then you have something before Jamie starts us off.
Well, I think just a reminder, to everybody and anybody who's watching online or anybody who's in the audience. This is something that we do every year in July. This is not some special meeting. We always have a work session in July. Let's talk about a variety of things. And I know there's a lot of attention out on social media for one of the topics. This isn't a special meeting. We're just going to discuss things. There's no action items in a work session. All there is discussion. And so we have a variety of things to talk about today, and we love that we have our community involved. It's come and share with us, listen to what our board members are working on. So with that, this year we have Jamie Kent, because of a lot of, information in today's world out on social media. People don't read the newspapers as much. We decided to hire Jamie Kent, who for the last 7 years has been the high school principal at Box Elder High School as our public relations director. So she is going to do a presentation. We just feel like we haven't done a good enough job of getting our message out to everybody and getting the correct message. And there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding about a variety of things. And public education is a pretty easy target for everybody nationwide. And so it's nothing specific or new here in Box Elder School District or in the state of Utah. And so Jamie has a presentation as she wanted to work with the board, and I've asked her, what's the best way we can help you, support you, and get ideas from the board. So with that, we'll turn some time over to Mrs. Kent to arrive.
So, just to start out, I just wanted to go over some of the information. I talked to a lot of you about what you were kind of envisioning for this job. And so just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So when I say our story, I mean, like all of us, like working together, what we've been talking about. So just talking about the importance of communication, making sure that the story of our district it's vital and that it gets out there. It builds trust and engagement, attracts students, and it promotes positive relationships. By sharing the narrative of our school, it can highlight our unique strengths, our values, and our achievements, create a positive image, and foster a sense of pride among students, staff, and the wider community. So this is kind of the mission for this job that we're going to talk about. And so like we'll probably be revamping this a little bit. But the mission is dedicated to cultivating strong connections between the schools, the family, and the community while supporting Box Elder School District's mission, which is that we will ensure students learn at grade level or higher, the Box Elder Way, the C Initiative. We plan to share timely updates, connect with stakeholders, and celebrate the accomplishments of students and staff. There's so many good things going on in our district that supports the C Initiative and the Box Elder Way. And we just want to highlight that. I think, you know, if we don't, nobody's going to know what's happening and what's going on in our district. We plan to ensure effective communication between our district office, our schools, our students, our parents, and the broader community. We want to share important information regarding policies, programs, events, achievements, and any other relevant updates that impact our stakeholders. And besides just positive things, sometimes there's things that come down from the state and mandates that the district has to do. And sometimes people don't get the why and they don't understand why these things are happening. So making sure that that's explained too. So the goal is to accurately communicate the why and promote transparency and trust. Yeah.
C, what's that acronym? I should know it.
It's superintendent's on his pamphlet, the C Initiative. Like I
Support professional learning communities, yes.
okay.
Okay, and enhance student connections, elevate employee relations.
I'm going to go over that, but that's like what we'll like.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Wanted that out there.
Yeah. So some of the things we talked about is crisis communication, ensuring accurate and timely information is provided during emergencies or other critical events. So I was at the high school one year where we had to lock down. We didn't know, you know, if the situation was real or not. And trying to get information out to parents was impossible during that situation when I was trying to take care of the school. And so helping some principal with that is important. And just other situations that go on, making sure the community gets the information timely, but making sure that the person who's at the school or to take care of the situation can take care of that situation. As someone who's not in the middle of it, help get that information out to people so people aren't worried. Internal and external communication, create content for our school, for our school district, for social media, the website, newsletters, press releases, respond to media inquiries, and facilitates the district's public relation efforts. And then also the positive image, showcase the success of our students, celebrate our dedicated educators, and highlight our innovative programs while reflecting our district's values. There really is a lot to share, and there's a lot going on out there, so I'm excited to do that. That's one of my favorite parts, is highlighting all the good things that go on. So just recently I went to the movie F1, and you're probably wondering, like, what does that have to do with high school graduation? But as I watched the movie, there's actually so much. So they're in a meeting and they're all meeting together, and they're talking about their strategy for the race. And one of the people says, we're going to hope for a break. And Sonny, the driver of this car, says, hope is not a strategy. And he goes on to talk about how you can't just hope that things will happen. And that's the same with this position that I've been put in. We can't just hope that the communication is going to be correct. We can't just hope that our community and our staff and our students will feel appreciated and supported. All those things have to be intentional, and it takes all of us working together. It's a full team. And the same is with learning and all the stuff that goes on in our school district. So when those students graduate and you look around in that stadium and all the people that are there, there's so many people that have a piece of that, even teachers clear back in elementary school. And so it's a whole team working, and that's what happens with this. We can't just rely on hope. We have to have a shared mission and vision. So the movie just really highlights teamwork and sacrifice, and the efforts of the whole team. And it's not just how good the driver can drive. It's not how good our students can learn. It's not how good our teachers can teach. It's how it all works together. I talked to the superintendent a lot about, we wanted to have a theme this year. Then, we'll change this each year, but what we want to highlight. And we felt like there were two things we really wanted to target this year that were stronger together, and then connecting and communicating. Making sure that people know that where to get information and that we do want to connect and communicate with them. And it just makes us better. So clear back in 2018, we did a book study and it was Renegade Leadership. And this quote, that was the first year I went to Box Elder. I wrote this quote down and I had it on a board in my office the whole time. And it says, every person who walks through our door leaves their fingerprints on the culture of our school. And I think with social media, this book is about digital, like raising kids in a digital era. They don't have to walk through our door anymore. People are affecting our culture outside by things that are happening with social media and things that we're sharing. So that's something we need to be intentional about in all aspects of what we're dealing with. This book talks about how important the culture of the school is, and it can have more impact on learning than anything else that we do. And culture is like the school is like a person's personality, and it's how we do things. And so we want to make sure we share that and communicate how we are doing things. Another really good movie, Hidden Figures, it talks about, you've seen the part where they're all working together. I was going to get a video clip, but I couldn't find a good one that works. But it's really powerful message. The team is kind of not working together and they're kind of going off on their own things. And sometimes some people are throwing other people under the bus. And he gets really upset and he says, we all get to the peak together, or we don't get there at all. And I think that is so true with our district. Like, we want to all be on the same, we want to have a shared mission and vision with everyone. And so helping communicate that with everyone. So this is the superintendent's SEED initiative. And these are things that we can provide communication on. So strengthening PLCs, expanding student connections, and elevating employee appreciation. And those are all key aspects that help make our district stronger. And so those are things we want to focus on, as well as using social media to highlight some of these. It's not the only thing we're going to use, but that's going to be a really powerful thing. There's downfalls to social media, but you can also use it as a positive tool in highlighting and promoting our staff development and recognitions, amplifying our students' voice and connections and communication, and accurately informing the why of why things are happening.
Jamie,
Yes.
would you give your elevator speech on what PLC is? Tell us what it stands for and also what the professional learning community is all about.
So professional learning communities work together. So they're collaborating on their curriculum and their assessments, ensuring that their students all learn the same thing in their classes. We're preparing kids for jobs that we don't even know what they're going to have. And so it's very important that we have these set standards that we're going to make sure that our students learn. And then those kids in each one of those classes are learning those standards, and those teachers are collaborating and sharing ideas. And so we spend a big part of our time in schools working on that. And then, of course, we have the Box Elder Way. This is something that came from the state of Utah, making sure that we're working with the whole child. And there's so many things going on in our schools with this. And sometimes I think people just don't know, and they don't realize because we don't always talk about it and share it. So making sure we're sharing this. It's wellness, the physical, mental, and emotional resilience, academic, critical thinking, problem solving, and lifelong learning, which sometimes that's the hardest thing to showcase because it's hard to show learning as it's going on in people's brains, but you can show achievements. And then the you, their person, them as a person, their honesty, integrity, responsibility, so if you guys have ever watched the movie Wonder, it came out in 2012, there's a part where it says, I think that there should be a rule that everyone in the world should get a standing ovation at least once in their lives. And I think that is so true. One of the things that has been my favorite thing working in any school is watching teachers when they're in their zone and working with kids, just making that magic happen. Just that is why they went out in education, and just seeing them do that and just seeing our kids grow. For example, one day our jazz band kids were down in the commons and they were playing at lunch for everyone. And Mr. Reader, our band teacher, came down and played with them. And I was just watching, and there was just so, like, the kids were loving that he was playing with them. He was in his element, and it was just so fun to watch. And those kids were so proud of what they had learned that year and showcasing it. And our students that were watching it were just loving it too. Those are the things that I just love watching, and those are the things that we want to share. And there are so many teachers that are working so hard in our district and showcasing what they're doing, and then also our students and the things that they're doing, they work hard too. So throughout this, we. Oh, okay. So, we want to help build a culture of trust. So I just want to read this part because I think it's so important. Sharing personal stories from both students and staff helps to humanize the school community and create a stronger bond of highlighting shared experiences and values. When students and families see themselves reflected in the school's narrative, they feel more connected and are more likely to become active participants and advocates. When students and staff see their stories valued and shared, it can create a sense of belonging and foster a more inclusive and supportive learning environment. Sharing stories can help students and staff build connections, develop empathy, and appreciate the diversity within their community. And so that's one thing that a lot of you have expressed that you want to happen with this job. So really, this is just like a call to action now. I just want you guys to help me celebrate our people and tell our stories. There's so much there to share. And then follow our posts, share information with me because I'm not going to know everything. There's no way one person can possibly know every good thing that's going on. So helping me know that information and then sharing ideas about ways that we can make this happen as a district working together, because together we are stronger. So now I just want you guys to help brainstorm what are some ideas of things that you have thought about that I should do.
I want to start off by just saying, I feel like we've needed someone at the helm of communication for a really long time. And I didn't have anything to do with choosing you for this job, but I applauded it wholeheartedly. So I'm excited that you're doing this for us. I don't know if you all know, but it wasn't easy for Jamie to leave her school. So thanks for taking this on, and I'm confident that we have someone great helping us spread the word and communicate better with the public.
Well, I think that's one of the things that is easy to, as you're like doing everything in a school or in a job, and that's some of the stuff that gets let go is the celebration, some communication, and making sure people appreciate it. I don't know, that's hard for me to always remember to keep doing while we were working and doing other things. So I'm excited for this to be able to do that because it is one of my favorite things.
Something that I've enjoyed doing is after board meetings, I try to do a 3-minute update and try to review everything in 3 minutes and like let people know what time stamp, or even just at some point in the middle of the meeting, go and listen to this part. This is like really important to you to help. So I think, people watch reels. That's where I do a lot. And I just feel like doing more videos. I think doing maybe some walking tours of some of the schools that are not doing as well. I think it's scary to put out things that we don't think are going well in the district, because then it's a sad thing that we shouldn't want to dwell on. But it's also to help obviously educate our community members about what is going on and why it's not just a want, but a need. So I think that would help. And then I think if I don't know, are we on topic? Am I on topic? Okay. I think interviewing some of the teachers and other faculty and staff members and like doing highlights of like different people in the district and like, I don't know, doing little mini interviews. I think it would be really cool to like connect, like you're talking about connecting. Maybe even having some community, like a football game, like community members can sign up and play against the senior, or maybe they go junior, freshman. But like having some opportunities where the community can come together and to share and some fun opportunities and they can just come and watch. A lot of times, like the football games, you have to pay to get in, which is, I would need to do that too to help support the district, but to have events that are building that community. They get to go see the turf and they can play on it,
One thing that I would appreciate is letting us as board members know what's going on, the activities. Sometimes I'll hear about things as like, man, I wish I would have known that. So just acting us as kind of David texts or emails about, hey, this is that's
You go first.
couple of things here. First of all, when I was on the board of directors a few years back in the state, many districts have a procurement. So it was a good thing. Some positive things to change how to do a super job. I think you've already touched on this, but I just think we do so many positive things in our district. And too many times on Facebook and everything, just in the negatives. And I thought there's so many positives. We just need someone there that can organize those things and you tell people all these wonderful things are going on. And I think that would be a plus for the entire district. Another thing, I remember this was during the pandemic. When we have like major issue, both we got sprayer and pepper, I think it's so important to have a spokesperson who can deal with that. Because I remember during the pandemic, I'll never forget this one day. It was about 9 o'clock. My wife and I were by, we saw the superintendent in the district office. He had been all 2, 5, and 4 channels that day, even with people upset people. And then he had to deal with all the stuff during the day of just getting them things taken care of in the pandemic. And not one person can help with that. So I just think we need a spokesperson who will be able to talk to the media, be able to, know what's going on, be able to say that to the media and to the news people, whatever. And then the superintendent can do his job of taking care of the situation. So anyway, but I just think those things are important. And Jamie, you did an awesome job on this. Truly, I can say that because I have never seen anyone do such an awesome job. And I think you're the perfect person for this job. And I think, you're the person that's supposed to win this job this time. So that's great.
I don't know how this would work. It's a thought and idea. Like
Showing.
a day in the life of a person. I don't know how we should do that because we have student privacy, but maybe like you condense it to 1 minute. So like they walked 3 miles throughout their school today. They have 15 classrooms, stuff just kind of like that. And they talked to on the phone. Maybe just some of those and highlight intensive everyday job. And then do the same thing for some teachers. Something, this is just random kind of, but my daughter's been doing tutoring with Heidi Watson all last year. So maybe like this would have been so helpful too, is to do like on the elementary pages and on the main one, like have the coaches get on and be like, this is what new math is. For the parents to be able to be like, oh, it's not how we did it at all again. So maybe just some snippets of, in first grade, this is what math we're focusing on. In second grade, third grade, fourth grade, we do for those lessons. I don't know. That would be helpful for me as a parent. Because I until I went to a tutoring session, I was like, oh, okay. That's what they're talking about. So that was some of my really discussions for this.
And so I don't really do social media too much. Like I follow some people that I just, it overwhelms me. And so you're amazing. I follow lots of my school because of you. Like I had things that I wanted to be involved in and I wanted to know. But one of the things that stand out to me on the ones that I do follow, I like facts. And I know, like I like reels too, but I'm like, give it to me fast, give it to me black and white. And then I know what's happening. And especially when we're talking about big decisions and things like a recap of the school board meeting. I think we have to hit different audiences. Some want to see it this way and some want to need it this way, but very clear things. And then I wish there was, and I don't know how to do this because it's always one of those things, like you want people to give you feedback and say, do you have a question? You want to have a way to respond without being overwhelmed with like trivial or not things that are not part of it, but like a way to, that's not just the comments. You know what I mean? Because the comments just can go off into tangents and everybody, and it just becomes, but like a real line that says, I don't understand this, I have this concern, and clarify, and then somebody might just give us, like, we need a two-way communication as well. And so I don't know how to do that, but.
I noticed a lot of districts, because I've been going through our websites on it, we have stuff like
community has things to share.
Yeah.
We have things to think about and ask questions.
Because I feel like, because I don't know about you, but scrolling comments,
Yeah.
like you want feedback and you want people to comment, but it goes way, many different ways, way too fast, and then it could just kind of suck up time. It'd be more efficient. But I think we've needed this position for a long time. I'm very excited about it, and I think it is going to be a real advantage to us moving forward in all aspects, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, we just need to communicate. It's not, we're not trying to hide that we're people too and have our own lives, and I don't have time to go up and brainstorm tell me exactly what's happening.
Right.
So,
I was talking with one of the, Tremont, I'm still board, what's the other one?
City council.
The city council, thank you. And they were talking about maybe having this collaborative opportunity with the city and, but doing it like on a, like almost like a podcast feel. I know we have the Super Scoop podcast, but doing, yeah, something with, well, helping us work with our community leaders as well. So, you know, and I also think maybe interviewing parents is different and asking them, what do you think those questions are, and having that back and forth where it's live, and then as other parents watch, like I love watching those podcasts because then I can say, yeah, I was wondering that same thing, and then there's like this communication that, oh, they're asking a really good question, and it just feeds on conversations that then it's like you can have a conversation with a lot of people.
Right.
yeah.
What I love about Better Lives podcast that they do is they kind of give you a rundown, a really short rundown. So I can see that on social media and say, that one interests me. I want to know that. And then I click on that one. But there's no way I watch one. I watch one or two a year, but I watch the ones that I've seen need or something to be. Yeah. So it was. Yeah.
I enjoy them. With social media, I read stuff sometimes and I think that's absolutely not true. I know that's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
I say to my wife, what should I comment? Facebook, don't start that. We need just someone who will say, no, this is how it really is. And how you ever do that. Say, we gotta get through that. Sometimes it just gets so blown out, it's just ridiculous.
And I also think, going back to like, we're getting feedback from people, but we're not, we have a mission and a vision and we want to communicate. We're not gonna be like, oh, now we're gonna shift to this. Oh, now we're gonna shift to this. We have a vision. Where are we going? And our priorities are aligning to that and we're moving toward that. And so our message is that if we get feedback that says, we love that idea, but that doesn't align with what we have or our resources, being able to communicate that in a way that just either doesn't make us look like we're ignoring our constituents, which I don't think any of us are, but also being respectful of others' ideas. But I think that's where having a clear, like, our story, our vision, the why behind it all, I think is really.
Well, I think on Wade's one topic, I can envision we get a standard Box Elder School District official statement.
Yeah.
And when she's reading something like that, I don't know if you can hold it or whatever, so when people see that, they know that's coming from Box Elder School District. And this is the official statement. And, you know, and I know there's always a concern from a small group of people that the government, district, the state, the man is trying to hide information or trying to be, but when we come out, whenever we send something that says Box Elder School District official statement, it is just the facts on the topic that may be on that particular, Facebook page or thread or whatever the case might be. And so all of a sudden, it won't be Jamie Kent, it won't be you as a board member, it won't be Superintendent Steve Carlson, it'll be Box Elder School District official statement. And some of those, Jamie's already got a hold of me and said, hey, this is what I think, what do you think? And she'll check with either myself or Keith, Heidi, Joe mostly, and kind of try to get a feel that she knows what the leadership's, feeling is about a certain topic. So I think, and we need to do a campaign on how we're going to respond to those things. And I'm not saying Box Elder School District official, comment, but I think it definitely would hopefully catch on that when the threads go on, because I've seen threads before, where all of a sudden somebody comes on and puts out some facts, and it seems like that thread goes poof. It's amazing how the facts sometimes shut down all this speculation and conspiracy theories and all those types of things. So, and Jamie's really, really good with that, but I also know she doesn't want to say, this is Jamie Camp.
Right.
So, yeah, no, she should.
Nobody expects it, yeah.
Well, and I do think when people don't have information, like we all do, so we don't know, our brain starts to see how, like, sometimes the worst situation. So it's important that people do that.
I don't know how, like, principals of schools still be in charge of their own schools pages. Is that how you envision that? I don't know. But maybe can we put together like a standard list of, make sure you put out a post on roundup by this date, on back to school registration, this date. I don't know what, like community council date, like meetings, stuff like that, of just a list to help the principal
I
out.
think that'd be outstanding, and she, she'd have time to be,
And here's
looking at Facebook during work time.
Here's a template, plug in your own dates and information, stuff like
yeah.
that, just so that it gets more standard, that at least we're hitting, every school is hitting the same.
And like just reminders, because like I would go on to some of my kids' websites, they're really good at the beginning of the year. And then you go down, I'm looking for something like, this was posted 7 months ago. I'm like, oh, that's not what I mean now. And like, just like reminders saying, remember, get this on your website. Remember, get this on your, like for each of those schools, because it's busy. It's crazy busy. I know.
It's like, the first day of school is this day, and it's a half day, and means the start and end times are
Yeah.
here, and maybe those need to go out every day. And you did a really good job on Box Elder, but I just remembered my cousin did for Utah State. They called it This Week at Home. So at the beginning of the week, they would say, and so maybe it's more for the high school, but maybe a student council member would want to do it, where they say, this week at home, we have volleyball on Tuesday night at this time, football Friday night. Or just like that, hitting both. There's a thing.
To help with this
Sure.
Mute, mission, if you want. I'm just curious about, somebody came up to me and asked me if the board wanted me to do some days on the parade.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's in this genre, but there's also the fair that we could have a booth where we could stand there and like answer questions and be more accessible to the public. Yeah. And I don't know if this is a good time to bring that up, but I would support those kind of things as well.
So it's not bad.
We just said.
The only thing the public would want was us to make up.
I would be on, I would do it.
That's funny.
I think students show like some, I don't know, it's just it's fun, just so people can relax.
Yeah.
It's good to know you guys better.
Yeah. Anyway.
Do you feel like you've got the feedback, the feedback?
Yeah, if you want anything else, you can always email me. Is that,
Out there, you see other good things that people are.
do we send people to you? That's my question. If they have like big concerns about what does the district feel about it, like, do I send people or do I come in?
I think you can send them to me still.
Okay.
So, and if it's an elementary thing, Heidi Joe is more specific. Secondary, Keith has, otherwise I'd probably go talk to them and, so I think, it just depends on which one it is, but I'm.
And from those conversations, you three can direct Jamie on what should be put, like,
Sure.
send us information you can find out that Jamie can put out there, right? All right, thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move on to our school district office staff in comparison with the other school districts in the state.
Superintendent Price.
Okay, I'm trying to join the meeting and then take over. So do I join the meeting?
Yes.
David?
Okay,
Dave?
there I am. And I need to mute?
And I'll make you presenter, and then you'll be able.
Share your screen.
David Cook
David Cook.
is our team, IT helper today.
And also, on the screen, you can see Neil, our business administrator. I don't know if it was Saturday. Was it Saturday, Neil? You took a tumble on
It was a Thursday evening.
took a tumble on a mountain bike and has a broken pelvis and some broken ribs, and I'm not sure what else.
If he drifts off to sleep, we understand why.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah, I don't have anything up yet, but how do I? System preferences. I do that. Share.
Oh. Sure. Sure, presenter, and then you should be able.
Do I dare hit?
You're there, you should be able to.
Do I need to say share?
Yeah, share, and then pick one you will share. You can show the whole screen or an individual window.
Oh, boy. You know, if this would have happened during COVID, we'd been able to do it, but it's been so long that I now hit share.
Yeah, right there. And then,
Allow?
yeah. And then pick what you want. So is it a,
Well,
the whole screen and then
I've got it up here.
mute? Is it Google?
How do I get rid of that from that?
That's what you're sharing?
Well, it's gonna be over here. This one. Already done. I'm gonna get rid of this. There, okay. Okay, we wanted to, discuss just a little bit, how Box Elder School District compares with other school districts in the state as far as district office staff. You know, there's been a lot of comments and throughout the year and throughout the bond campaign and throughout our discussions about truth and taxation and all that, we keep hearing how, lack of a better word, bloated we are. And so we have, done a few things, and this is where I'll ask Neil to, to jump in whenever he sees some things, because he's found some of these. This first one is cost comparisons per school district. Let's see. Oh, that's going to be hard to see.
The very, very top, you see a 100% plus.
I do not.
There's look up here though. I don't know if you have access to that.
think I can maybe just, will this do it? Ooh, that made it huge. So, anyway, we'll try that the best we can. Neil, jump in wherever you can, but I just want to point out, this is the 41 school districts in the state. And if I'd only be 40, because the 41st school district is the school for the deaf and the blind. And then you can see, this is the number of tax dollars for expenditure towards each student. And so when you get up here, this is how much money Rich School District has. And for those of you, I'm sure know, I grew up in the Idaho side of the Bear Lake Valley. And so for the 4th of July week, I was up there and even spent a couple of days in one of the condos that, or not condos, actually a cabin that our family purchased for a couple of days. And so they have a ton of second home money. Park City is also in that same situation. And I don't know some of these others, how they got there. Tintic is just a really, really small school district. So the amount of money they have per student is really based on their small numbers. Uinta School District, of course, has oil. Garfield, just a short number. Beaver, you know, I'm surprised Carbon School District. I was the superintendent of Carbon School District for 6 years. And quite frankly, I thought that Carbon School District was struggling a little bit until I, you know, quite frankly, got here. And right now, can't even see where we are.
Very well. That's scroll.
Do I need to scroll a little more?
Yeah, it's highlighted, you'll see it. What is it?
I should have
What
known.
is central to total mean? Sorry.
So Superintendent, this slide you have here is the one comparing district office costs. Yeah, so this slide right here compares the percentage of our budget that we spend on district office staff members. So think of the business office, the HR, Keith and Heidi Joe's office, those types of expenditures relative to our budget. So this is saying we're spending 1.08% of our budget on administrative functions, excluding the superintendent's office. So our total expenditures are quite low relative to the rest of the state when we consider how much of our budget goes towards administrative costs.
I knew Neil could explain that much better. But I hope that makes sense to folks that we, you know, we really are extremely efficient, lean. Thank you. And, you know, whenever we show our organization chart, every position that we have in this district has 7, 8 hats that they wear. And there are other districts, and I've got a spreadsheet in a few minutes, and I don't think it's going to be worse than this as far as sharing it, but it is available on Board Book, and it's available to anybody who wants to look at it, to go through and talk about that. But I think this is really telling. I will tell you this, that I just have a personal understanding that Joab School District just took one position and split it into 2 positions. And the reason I know that is because one of my sons became their director over secondary schools. And it used to be the same person who was the director over secondary schools and the special ed director. Then they just split it, just starting July 1st, and became the special ed director, one person and the other person. So with that split, Joab's a little bit smaller school district. It's a possibility they might sneak past us for that last place and let us have the opportunity to
So
be
that's
that.
the percentage of our total budget that we spend on the district office staff.
Yes. And that's how that's compared with all those up and down there. Okay. So I just think, you know, that's one of those, I don't know, misinformations. You know, we spend way too much on the district office, and, you know, it is true. There's a lot of money spent, but I will tell you, in just the 8 years I've been here, the number of mandates from the state office, from the legislature, and it's amazing to me how much different my job is right now than it was 8 years ago. And then previous to that, I spent 6 years in Carbon as the superintendent at a smaller school district. I mean, it's up here, you can see they were up, they're probably down the top for half of that. And then I also spent 10 years at North Summit School District as superintendent. So I've seen it from North Summit School District with 1,000 kids and very few people to help, but we were able to get it done because you had so few kids. Carbon School District, 3,500 kids. Few more people that help do those things. But I will tell you, this job has been far, 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 far bigger than any of those other two jobs were. And so the number of things we have, number of people, just like hiring Mrs. Kent to be our HR director, not our HR director, our PR communications person is just something that we need to do and be able to tell our story. Let me see if I can get back to that next slide.
Who does that, just for your information, one thing I asked Jamie if she would please highlight is to highlight each of the directors in our district office and tell us what they do, what the different hats that they do. Also, I'm curious about their educations and what they did before they became directors. So that's.
Okay, Neil, you want to explain what this particular, it's similar, but it's a little bit different.
This is what you're alluding to earlier. Essentially, this looks at how much property valuation do we have in our district per student. So if you look at the blue line, that the average is about $1.4 million is the average property valuation. Now, Brigham City probably skews out pretty high because they're at $9 million and change per student. Box Elder School District is down towards the bottom, and it's at $651,000 per student. That really affects our tax rates and also affects the distribution. We probably have a higher concentration of farmland and residential properties in our district than most other urban districts. And that impacts our residents more because that requires more taxing effort from our commercial business to get the same amount of money. Because commercial and second homes is taxed at 100% of its value, where residential is taxed at 55%, and farmland is what we call fee in lieu. Is that depending on what you use your farmland for, you pay a certain amount of rate of how much you produce on it. It doesn't produce a lot of income tax or property tax for us in our district, and that's why we have a lower, under $700,000 per kid, or rather per student, tax rate or tax value rather for our purposes.
Yes, Stephanie.
I'm just curious, how does the WPU fit within that? Is this included or not included?
No, this isn't included here. This is just strictly our local county tax and county taxes to them. Yeah. So everybody is supposed to be equalized, so we all get the same amount of WPU. This is where the difference is made in education is the state provides X. If you want Y and or Z, then the district that the local county has to produce them. Does that sound right, Neil?
Yeah, about 34% of all of our revenue comes from our local property tax. The remaining comes from the WPU, the state guarantee, which is about 60%. And then after that, between 10 to 15%, depending on the district, comes from federal funds, which if we've been watching the news the last couple of weeks, federal funds to education is being drastically reduced. I sent an email out to the district leadership team this week that there's about $500,000 in federal funds for FY26 that the Trump administration is impounding or not distributing yet. So we may have a $500,000 cut to our federal fund budget this year. We just don't know if that's going to happen. And for next year, the administration is looking at cutting federal funds by almost half of consolidating programs, doing programs that they don't feel are useful, and distributing much less money to the school districts, but at the same time wanting to alleviate administrative burden, take away regulations, so you get less money, but you also get less regulations if that budget comes to fruition later on next year.
Right now, Neil, what do we get? How much in actual dollars do we get from our federal?
We get about almost $6 million, but that includes child nutrition. So between Title I and Special Ed, which are our biggest other contributors of federal funds besides child nutrition, I want to say that's right about $3 million. There are some other smaller pots of money that come in here and there, like $500,000 said that we lost in Title II, or potential to lose that, and also effective destruction. So there's some smaller pots, but our biggest pots are about $2.5 million in special ed dollars and about $1.3 million in Title I dollars.
Okay, any questions about this slide? I mean,
So how does this slide, how does equalization work with this slide?
well, this slide, it doesn't. The equalization is only in the WPU where everybody gets, distributed the same amount. What this, Neil, help me here, but what this basically says is, this is why Park City does what they do. And actually, Park City has so much money that they don't get the equalization. Right, Neil?
Yeah, they write a check for about $10 million a year to the State Board of Education for their equalization efforts. So they receive so much property tax money that they have to make the rest of the state whole by writing a check to us.
So tell us how, Karen was right, there is an equalization factor, and is that in the board voted leeway and the voted leeway?
It's a very complex formula. It takes in board and voted leeway and looks at how much you're collecting there. And they have a guaranteed rate. I think that's right around $75 per student. So if you receive less than $75 per student between voted and board leeway, then they would cough up, or they would provide us additional subsidy for that. We do get some of that. It's like $3 or $4 million a year for us, so it's not a terrible amount. But like $75 per student equalization is not nearly enough to make up for what we don't get elsewhere.
Neil, I think to help us all understand some of these numbers that we're talking about, what is with federal, with district, with state, what is our budget at the end of each year, roughly?
Last year, we ended up about $136 million for operations. So that doesn't include our capital budget or other things. If you want to throw everything that we do, every dollar that goes in our district, it's about $175 million per year.
But the trouble with some of those federal cuts is it's very specific to like Title I, and for anybody who doesn't know, Title I is for the lower income schools. We've got two or three of those in the school district, and we've got them and Title I students throughout. It's for English language learner programs. Some of it's for teacher training. That's the Title II, which letter is that? 2A. And so some of those things are being, reduced. At least right now they're impounded. There's a lot of debate whether or not they'll get released, and we just kind of have to wait and see on that. And yeah.
Did you say we have spread?
Well, we have Lakeview, North Park, and just the two.
We're talking like the
McKinley. Okay. Those are the three. And so
Our oldest schools too.
they are right there as our oldest, yes.
McKinley.
McKinley's a little newer, and McKinley's had a lot more put into it, in the last 10 years or so at least. So besides our two middle schools, they're and each one of those are, there has to be a certain percent, and what's the percent of kids that need it?
35%, but we seek for 40%, so it can be school-wide. I can give you the years on the school being built. So Lakeview was 1962, North Park's 1962, McKinley was 1973. So Century was before McKinley, but has had updates as well.
What about, sorry, what's the middle schools?
The middle schools are 65, both of them, 1965. Right, Keith?
District of
Okay, now this one is incredibly,
Sorry, but like, when you said 35 to 40%, what are those?
So if it's under 40%, then it can be targeted assist, but if it's
number
over,
of students who are.
yes, who are economically disadvantaged, free and reduced school.
Okay,
Free and reduced.
under what then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I need.
And then the distinction is school-wide versus targeted assist, and targeted assist would be like just the students that you identify as needing help, which makes it really problematic and difficult to not be able to support all students equally, so over school-wide. Fortunately, those funds are not for 2%, because that would result in a significant number of
I'll get rid of that,
employees
Dave.
not having
You know?
positions next year.
Please.
Counselor,
How can I
LCSW,
get that view right?
teach, or paras. Last year we had teachers, but we moved them to the general.
Slide it down.
3%. Are we,
There we go.
over, close to, barely making it, like,
We believe there's a lot more students that are not applying, than what it shows, but
because they don't know.
we're close to, so, like in the past, like Mountain View would be like 60-something%. And right now, we're living at 46, 48%. There's
Maybe that's not changing.
We're trying to make it out. Yeah, I've worked with child nutrition to make sure that we're getting a lot of communication out regarding that and filling out your application regardless of whether or not you take the benefit, but it benefits the school. It's a step for people. That's difficult. We've worked with Jeff Morris to make sure we have translators there to help with the application process for those that don't speak English as their primary language, not help. Yes, I do believe Jamie a lot about getting the communication.
Yeah. And it's,
I take notes, Jamie. I share them with you,
it's
and I'll add that to it.
a problem in every school district I've been in. We've had campaigns after campaign because there are a lot of extra funds. And it's, there's a lot of research that goes into children with lower socioeconomic situations. They've had less reading done, they just have less emphasis on education in their homes because the parents are trying to survive, let alone trying to thrive. So that's why there's these extra supports to try to help them, to be more successful. And I was worried about this one. A couple weeks ago, I wanted, in this presentation, I wanted to talk about our district in comparison with several other districts. So we sent an email to all of our directors, and I'm afraid, I apologize for the public, but the board members will be able to look at this more closely. And what I asked them to do is look at their department, find their person from, and help me if I miss anybody, but Ogden, Weber, Provo's very close to our size, Iron, and Twilla. Now both Twilla and Weber and Cash, they're all bigger than us, but it's still a lot of the same work. Did I miss anybody that I asked you guys to reach out to? And that was all departments, HR, student services, professional ed, every.
Facilities.
What's that?
Facilities.
Facilities, and I don't know, I will let, if you don't mind, because this is so small, Corey, what did you find out in your, number of people that you have doing work for you?
Within our department?
Yeah,
or
first,
through the state,
compared to other people.
we're low.
Okay.
As far as staff, Logan and Ogden both have fewer student enrollment and have comparatively
Same.
more within facility department.
And when we talk Logan School District is a school district versus Cash, it's all the way around. Logan has 5,000 or 6,000 kids, and Cash has, I believe, 19. Is that 18 or 19? Does that sound right? So some of that's comparable. Twill is also 18, somewhere in that range, 19. Ogden's very similar. Iron's very similar. Provo's very similar, numbers wise. And so he's found that out. I knew that from Corey. Robert's not here, but Robert Gordon is our IT director, and he has been campaigning for, I don't know, probably the last 3 years to try to get more people in his department, because we did a tour of the district office prior to this meeting with our board members, and David will attest to this and know this, but when we just went into the server room, I think it opened up some eyes on how much, is going on. I mean, that server room with all the stuff that needed to be in. Donnie Banks, one of the IT guys, took I don't even know what you call it. And he said that right there, fitting inside of this slide, used to be all of this cabinet and most of this cabinet. And so luckily, because of technology and
Either one of our servers or storage.
yeah, exactly. And that's just to store all the student information and the personnel information that we have. And plus on top of that, we have to have IT guys that specialize in security. Because every single day, probably every minute of every day, we've got people trying to hack into our servers. Just this past year, Uinta School District had that happen to them, and there was an all call from all across the state. There was all kinds of IT people. So just with everything that's going on, it just takes more and more people. Catherine, I know you mentioned to me that it's hard because so much of it is, I'll let you explain it in your comparison, sir.
Yes, so it's not curiosity, that's why you're not on. It was a little hard to do it straight across because in every other district, for example, in ours, we had me as a special ed director and then I have underneath me. In every other district, they have at least an assistant director. Like even Logan has an assistant special ed director.
Explain what a coach is, just somebody,
A coach is a teacher plus 10 extra days. So it's like an instructional coach in the buildings, but they are specific to special education. So that's what I had in with me. Weaver, for example, they have assistants, an assistant director, plus they have multiple administrators under them. Then they have, some of them call them coordinators for function.
what does Weaver have, about 20? Do you know anybody, 25?
How many students?
32, thank you.
So so it was hard for me to go straight across because it's not apples to apples. But as far as what all is required and what we need to do and whose responsibility that is, most of those are administrative responsibilities, which falls to one person. Where in other districts, they at least split those administrative responsibilities. And then, did that answer?
Yeah. Okay, Keith, what did you find out in talking about assistant superintendents over secondary? And people do it different ways, but what'd you find out?
Well, one of the things, in our role, I oversee, 18 principals, assistants, 7 principals and 11 assistants. I'm their direct supervisor. I need to do all that. Everybody that I saw that was handling the curriculum part of secondary, they have people doing all of that for them, which is also a role that I have to do. So anyway, all of them have a person to help support administrators, which is my probably number one job. But number 2 is these other secondary curriculum things that happen. So anyway, we wear lots of hats. And the reality, I think one thing that's important is, doesn't matter how many hats you have. If someone can focus on one hat, they get pretty good at that hat. But everybody else still has to know all the hats. And that's where I think our district administrative staff, they have to learn multiple things. The reports are still the same. You still have to do all those types of things. You just have to have your hands in all of that. So it does help us be a little more balanced with what everybody's doing, but certainly the reports are the same that the state asks. All the compliance, that's all the same. And so it just makes, so we have had some changes in the last couple of years that's actually helped lighten that a little bit. But comparison with other districts, we are still low.
Hi, Joe, you find the same thing in elementary?
Yeah. One of the things that stood out to me is just trying to check into it. We really had to delineate what does, okay, for example, Ashley, who wears several hats, like, okay, Ashley, you're only going to check on this one thing in order to do your comparison, or Jeff, who does assessment.
We're talking about Ashley Nelson, who's
yeah, so instructional support and literacy and ELA and media and curriculum policy, because again, as things come out from the state, when you have 150 new legislative bills that somebody has to take responsibility for, you just start doing this, right? Instead of hiring a new person for that individual. And as Keith mentioned, we actually had people leave our district because they said, yeah, sure, I'm going to make 10% more over here, but I'm going to do this one thing on the org chart instead of having 25 things that are interrelated listed as my role and responsibility. That's something I noticed. I noticed not very often is the curriculum director also the evaluator of the administrators. Typically, the evaluator of the administrators, that's their only role, just overseeing the principals, whatever number that is separate from the curriculum directors, and very often they have multiple curriculum directors and several teacher specialists under the curriculum directors to help oversee the work of dividing that up. So just to kind of, yes, look at your sheet a little bit, it kind of goes into detail there of like, in our department, 1.5 is over elementary, but other districts like 8 and 4 and 10 in just these little smaller districts, they're significantly smaller. That was.
Thank you, Heidi Jo. I've asked Jamie in the HR what you found, not HR, keep PR and HR, I'll give you.
Yeah, I know. So as far as like staff members that they have in the communications department, it was about the same, but that's all they do is communication. So they didn't, they weren't over any kind of curriculum. Some of them did with the foundation, but not all of them. And so they're just, most of them were just specifically communication.
Just a reminder, we didn't point that out, but Heidi Jo is also the director for our foundations. Keith's been doing. I'm sorry, Jamie, I was looking right at Jamie and I said Heidi, so Jamie is the, and as Keith said, you know, he's been doing that 3 years, 2 years. He said, I love the foundation, I love what it stands for, but when I have to weigh out my job, what do I do when, you know, just let the foundation, because that's really kind of a secondary or a third area or a fourth area, I don't know what those words are, but, you know, to put his efforts towards helping principals and vice principals be successful, or helping the foundation raise extra funds to help, you know, the variety of things that our foundation does. So Jamie's going to take that one over, and that's really public relations type role too. So we're excited for her. And I've only said HR 4 or 5 times. So Karina Fife is our executive director over HR. And what did you find out, Karina, in your efforts?
So the biggest thing I think that I noticed is we are short, you know, we're compared to all other districts. Logan is the only one that we're ahead of, but they're like population. And the ones that are comparable to us, they have more than one administrator. So instead of just an HR director, they have an HR specialist or HR assistant, like they have more than one.
Now you're talking certificated people with probably a master's degree versus a paraprofessional, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we don't have that.
Yeah.
So those were the biggest findings.
Now, I think that's everybody that, you know, we did, of course, ask, you know, all our other directors, CTE and all those, and that's on here, this information. I'm not here asking for more positions. I'm not here, you know, crying a bucket of tears. What I'm here for is to try to help people understand that we're not bloated in this school district. We are far from that. We are very efficient. Our district does a great job, and people put in a lot of hours, you know, and it says on our contracts, mine does, and I think these other guys were expected to work 8 hours a day. There's none of the people that have spoke to you yet that have seen a regular work day at 8 hours. And so, I mean, sometimes we might have to leave at 2 o'clock to go to a doctor, but the day before we spend, you know, today we'll be here till hopefully 8:30, maybe 7:30. But we've been here until 11:30, 12 on a day like today. And a lot of us do conferences that go over the weekends. This month alone, I've worked both a Friday and a Saturday, where we have Fridays off during the summer. And so, you know, the number of hours, we get paid well, but, you know, you're still away from your family just like many of the others. So I guess what my point is I'm hopeful that when you're approached about, you know, the district office, and just for those of you who don't know, we are in what's called the Independent Life Skills Center. And downstairs are our 18 to 22-year-old students who have special ed needs, who were not able to graduate at the regular rate. So this building was actually built for that, but we did not have any type of real specific training areas, and our boardroom's right across the way there. This is just where we come to work. And so this is kind of part of the district office, but it's really just this upstairs empty hallway, and then the district office, of course, is across the way. So any questions more about any of that? Like that? Yes, Wade.
You know, it's interesting being on the board now for 10.5 years. I've talked to tons of people, and I move east, I'm not here. But a lot of people think that school and the district is exactly how it was when we went to school. And that just is not the case. For example, I'm the oldest one in this room, I know that. When I went to elementary school, there was no resource, there was no special ed. Okay?
Yep.
I mean, what happened to those kids who had issues and, you know, difficulties? Where did they go? I don't know, but there was just none. I was in the district for probably 10 years before, as a principal, before they even hired any curriculum person, and that was a half a day person for a couple of years. So, I mean, things have just changed so dramatically, and there's certainly no technology. There's just so much more now that wasn't years ago, and that requires more people to do those jobs. And so I have never thought, being in the district as long as I have, the district was overstaffed, the district office every day. And they have done everything they could to make the most of it. So that's just my anyway, so.
Any other thoughts or ideas before we, I think we're pretty close to our, actually pretty close to our agenda right now. Wow, that's pretty amazing. This next one could slow it down. I'd like to, as we start this, and I realize this one,
Can we take that a couple minutes, right?
sure, I think that'd be very good.
That's good.
Yep, no, absolutely.
There's also some, if you need something to keep you awake over here in the corner. Not awake, I'm very alert now. This is not, but if you, if you.
Few little goodies.
You need a snack, real quick.
Unpause us. Are we ready?
We're ready.
If you don't mind, I'd like to start this part of the presentation off with some information. Throughout the bond election and through this discussion we've had about adding on to high schools, building an elementary in Tremont and even possibly if we had enough money, adding on to one of our schools on this end, Discovery. I think if I hear one thing that I think is from most people, the most is taxes. And, and I've heard so many times, my taxes never go down, and what I think even our board, because sometimes I forget this, is that what the board is in control of is the tax rate. And that's what I've done here. I asked my bookkeeper if I could share this, because my bookkeeper just happens to be my wife, and she's really good at it. And she's, done it for organizations and businesses and a lot of it. And so I asked her if I moved here in 2017. So I have 8 property tax notices, and I don't know why, if we just didn't have the first 2, but the first 2 are different, but they have the information than the next 2. And so they're shared on there, and I just redacted my address. It says Steve Carlson's on there. My home is, I'm on 0.26 of an acre. I think it's 1550 upstairs and 1550 downstairs. And I'm not sure about the 50, so it's either the 3,000 square foot home or a 3,100 square foot home. I live in Perry. The home was built in 2015. I'm giving you all that information just so people can understand, how it compares maybe to their home and the things that they've seen. I'm just going to whip through really fast because at the end I have a spreadsheet of all of those. And so as you can see, the first one, slide this up, is 2017. See if that turned that on. And there are several things there's 3 things I think that I really want to point out or 4. So everybody gets this. If you own a piece of property, y'all get this. And I think lately it's different. Like I said, it's almost a quarter, or a little bit more than a quarter of an acre. Tells where it's at. That's of course my name, and then just redacted my address. And I'm not thinking anybody would want to come and burn my house down, but you just never know. And they can find it anyway. With all of these taxing entities, okay, we know that Box Elder School District is the biggest taxing entity. So as you look up and down there, that's the one that we have control of. The basic school levy is controlled by the state of Utah. We cannot control that. The charter school levy, we have promontory, we cannot control that, this district. The only thing we have control of is Box Elder School District and that tax rate. And in 2017, my tax that went to Box Elder School District is $871. And the rate was 0.006423. So that's, you know, I can only start with my comparison of my home. Okay, and the home value was $246,725. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what the value of the home was. I can tell you that in 2017, I paid more than that when I got it. So the next one, these two are the same forms. The amount, let's see, the tax rate, if you remember, it actually went down a little bit. I can't remember what the graph will show that in a few minutes, but you can see my value's the same. Let's see. Right here, the value's the same the first 2 years that I lived there, and the tax rate went down a little bit, so I actually paid a little bit less taxes than I have. I think if you remember, the other one was higher than that. Then the world started to change in northern Utah, and maybe Utah itself. Okay, here's a different form, but my home did go from 246 to 274. The tax rate, let's see if we get that over where we see it a little better. Okay, the tax rate went, let me see, where's the school district? Number one up there. It went down. Remember, it was 0.006 something and then 0060. Now it's 005482. So the tax rate actually went down. And in finance for public schools is the amount of money that we're trying to generate is X. And the way that we do it, as the community gets bigger and assessments go up, values go up, then we basically have to pay less. And so I think that's going to be telling as we keep going, look at those 3 or 4 numbers. Now we're looking at 2020. I think that you see my home value went from 274 to 321. And I haven't been spent a lot of time, but Box Elder's the rate went down once again. But if you looked over at how much I paid, I didn't do the last one. You'll see a graph a little bit. I actually paid more because the value of my home was a lot more. Tax rate went down, value of your home's more, you pay more taxes. You'll see this very commonly throughout this presentation. There's Box Elder School District in 2021, and my home value went up again from 321 to 357. The tax rate was going to be 4920. That particular year, if you look over here on the right side of the column, the last column, it says right there, Truth in Taxation Meeting. And there it is, August 11th, 6:30 p.m. at the ILSC, 960 South Main Street. And so that's what happens whenever you go for Truth in Taxation. And what Truth in Taxation means is the Board of Education, by law, can keep their taxes the same or raise it within a certain amount. And every year they drop down. If our board would have gone to Truth in Taxation every year, they could have kept it up to that 6 every time. But they have to tell the people in that meeting in August that that's what they're going to do. And they have to let the people come and give comment, tell you what they think. But that's, and there are districts in this state who every August hold a Truth in Taxation meeting and keep their level the same. And as you can see, the first 4 or 5 years, it's already, we've gone down every year. Even though we held Truth in Taxation, it still was lower than the year before. And like I said, you'll have to trust me until I show you the chart. By the way, during that same time, I'm not calling anybody out, but because I live in Perry. Perry had a Truth in Taxation here, and I think they might have had it in one other previous year, but they had 2 or 3 in a row. And that's where I live, so I understand property taxes. Once again, look at this year. In the year of 2022, And this is where we've been getting hit as property owners. 357 in 21, 471 in 22. 1 year, the value by property, Keith, you're the math guy, 70.
Well, it went up
Oh, no.
150,000 from 2021.
Yeah,
To 2020, or from 2020 to 2022, it went up 150,000 in value.
and here's the interesting thing, because that's gone up so much, look at the tax rates
That has to do with the county, when we see the value.
every so often. Yep,
They do,
That was a year that.
so they evaluate Brigham,
yep.
they evaluate Corinne, and so whenever that valuation happens,
And they usually
then
have
that has to adjust, yeah.
So right there, though, the tax rate is because the value's gone up throughout the whole county is much lower, that 0.004463. If you keep going down here a little bit,
Truth in taxation, how come, what is our truth in taxation? What did we do?
We didn't have one that year. Perry had one
Yeah.
3 years in a row.
we've had, in my 8 years here, we've had two.
So on where the comment, the truth in taxation is on the, if you go to the right, it's.
Yeah, it tells you.
By a line, so Perry is at 71, so we would still be that top one, so there's nothing there.
Okay, keep going, 23, house is up another 60,000. The property taxes went down again, I believe it's 4.4 the year before. Don't have it up high enough.
Right here.
Okay,
I know you've got a chart, I thought.
Yeah.
As-
Yeah. and so there's 22, 24. Interestingly enough, and I don't know what happened in 24, but the value of my home actually went down in 24. Went from 543 to 532. And I don't know, there was that one blip that 1 year where
Mine went down, you could break it.
during that, not just the taxes, but also the value of home. And I know there was a 401k blip during that year, so I don't know if that was all
He's got a chart.
tied into this. I do.
Well, the rate is for 23
Okay.
is 0.004349.
Yep.
Thank you.
And let's see,
But that's what it would have been in.
that's the last one I had, but these are, like I say, these are on board book. It's on the next slide, I'll share with you. If I can get there, I've got to get all the way up to agenda. And this is a spreadsheet of what I've been talking about.
That's all there's.
And these are the ones that, I think are
Just want to make sure you.
important. And so as I mentioned, my home was 246 market value in 2017 when I bought it. And now it's 532. It's even down from the 543 it was last year. During that same time, we started at 0.006423 with the tax rate. And in each year, you can see that's less, that's less, that's less, that's less, that's less, that's less. And then it did go up a little bit here, and that's because of that drop. When there's less value, we all have to add in a little bit more. And so that's, I started at 871. That's $420 more than I pay in that 7 years. And so here's the inverse correlation of this whole thing. As you look at this is the market value in a bar graph. So you can see that during those 8 years that I've lived in my home, that it's almost gone up incrementally almost every single year to the point that it's 530, 540, and it started over here. So it's gone up. Now, interestingly enough, our tax rates have inversely gone the other direction. And so our tax rate here was, I think, I want to say 0.006 or 6.
0.0064.
And so each year they've gone down, even though during this time frame we held truth in taxation. What I'm trying to point out is I think our district has been incredibly resourceful and incredibly respectful of the taxpayers. Even the couple of years we did go to truth in taxation, it must have been that year, we didn't go up here. Now the board could. Yeah.
The rate to what it was the year before.
Exactly, if we just kept it there, yeah. And I have a sheet for that, just.
No, the 2 years we did it,
Yeah.
that's all we did.
Yes.
So any higher.
Yep, we didn't go any higher. Very good point. And so, you know, that's what is so hard is yes, taxes, and people have even asked, can you guarantee our taxes won't go up? Well, we can't. Nobody can, because tax rates and value in the county are just unpredictable. You don't know whether or not what's gonna happen. And so that's the case. Now, other boards, other superintendents might just have a different attitude and say, hey, we're gonna have true taxation every year and hold you right there. That's something that you just never know. And this board can't hold a future board to anything, because that's the law. It's like, you know, United States House of Representatives and the Senate can't hold, you know, somebody to what they're gonna do in another 10 years. Okay, I've got a separate slide that I hope I can show. That I wanted, oh boy, where is this? I hate to get out of here because I'm afraid I don't know if I can get back. How do I get out of this screen right here? I've got a screen. There it is. Here.
Yeah, are you trying, sorry, are you trying
I've
to?
got a document behind here.
I think you have to scroll back down to this.
Is it a different application?
Yeah.
Then you need to stop sharing,
Well, I wanted to
come in on that application.
I've got a spread, I've got a just Word document behind it.
Down here at the bottom.
Well, it's somewhere there.
I think it's on the same.
Not inside.
It's not.
No.
So we have to stop sharing this screen.
Here, just minimize your stuff.
So it's still got from this one, Karen. But come up with numbers. Sure.
Word.
Yeah, see what there?
That we bought. Okay, what I decided to do is once I did that whole thing, and somebody, if you can go back to that document, from 2017, the number was are you there, Keith? That spreadsheet that, you know, we just had on here was 0.006423. Then what I did is I went down to the 24 rate, which was 0.004403. And so I subtracted that bigger one from the smaller one. And is that number right? Okay. So you guys have heard us say this, right now in Box Elder County, our value is $7.2 billion. I know that just seems unbelievable, but it's $7.2 billion. So if you take and times that $7.2 billion, this is the amount that if we'd have held steady 8 years ago, this is the amount that we have lost because we didn't hold steady. And this is the amount of money that Box Elder School District would have generated every year, and it would have been a little bit less then because it would have gone up. That's how much money if we just went back to what we were in 2017. And I guess, and I'll be straight up honest with you, not that I wouldn't be anyway. We're asking, Neil, are you still there?
He's there.
Okay, we're thinking we need $11 million to do what we are hoping to be able to do with our truth and taxation. Add on to 2 high schools, to add on to 2 high schools, build a middle school, build an elementary in Tremont. And so it's actually less than what legally the board can do. And so I'd like to commend the board, and over the past 8 or 7 or 8 years while I've been here, I think the board's been incredibly frugal and respectful of, that money. But now the time is here, we've got to do something. I'll give you a couple of other examples. Whether you like turf or not, okay, on football fields. And I think in today's world, we pretty much have to do it because we used to just have football fields. Then soccer came on. That has been around for a while. Now there's lacrosse, girls and boys lacrosse. It's almost impossible to keep a football, and some people even get mad we call it a football field because it's so many other fields. So 5 years ago, I believe, helped me 5, 6 years ago, Bear River High School had community members that wanted turf on their field. And they came to the Board of Education. And the Board of Education has a committee, it used to be called the Long-Term Capital Outlay Committee, which sounds like a lot of money, but we've turned it into the Facility Advisory Committee. And each year, they would go through all of the needs of the school. Corey Thompson would be there to talk about, hey, we need to put a new blacktop on this parking lot. We need to put a new roof on that building. We need to put a new boiler in that building over there. He'd come every year. Generally, since I've been here, he's asked for $2.5 to $3 million. Is that a fair statement? To do all of the many things it takes to keep buildings at least functional, which I think we've done. And what we have found out is that we just really haven't done enough, because you don't keep going, you end up dropping backwards. So, what my concern is get back to that turf is when we built that 6 years ago, 5 years ago, did you say 6? It cost $800,000 to build a turf field in Everett High School. And 2 years ago, are we done for 2 years now at Box Elder High School? I think they.
Well, they put on to your point last year.
So 4 years later, or 3, 4, 2 or 3. It cost $1.2 million. Or it was the project a whole lot different. Pretty much the same thing. So my point being is that 4 years later, an $800,000 project cost $1.2 million. And so my worry is if we kick cans down the road, things that will cost $25, $28 a month for my home, as you saw, is probably pretty much right dead center in the middle of that. $450,000 is the average home in Box Elder School District. So my home would go up $28, I believe, is what our BA is said with asking and over asking. And if we wait and we let these schools get older and in worse condition, it's going to be a lot more. I'll give you another example. About 6, 7 years ago, we had a building in Grouse Creek that was built, I believe, in the 30s. Anybody remember? And the actual mortaring between the rocks that they had was, if you go like that, pull it out. Up in the roof, it was just a good old fashioned wood roof, but we had to have 2x4s that were hammered down here. Up there, we're bowling to try to keep the roof in place, all the snow. And we talked at length about it and finally came up with a plan, and it was going to be $1,800,000 to $1 million to replace it. Well, for some reason, we, the board, decided not to do it that year. About 3 years later, we did it, and we did expand the project a little bit. And it ended up being $2.2 million. Maybe a little bit more than that, sorry. The point I'm trying to make is every time you kick the can down the road, sooner or later, that can's gonna catch up and you're gonna stumble and fall on it. And we're just gonna have problems. And when do we stop kicking the can down the road, and when do we start? And that's kind of what my feeling is, is being around a lot. I passed a bond in 2003, and the gentleman that's the superintendent in North Summit, I was the superintendent then, he called me up and said, hey, just so you know, we paid off our bond. That was a couple years ago. So those 20-year bonds actually do fall off. In 2029, we have a bond that will be paid off from the election in 2007, right? 2007. So that bond will be paid off. And when we talk about your taxes will go down, the amount of taxes on this one won't go down, but that bond's gonna be paid down. Your taxes will drop then, overall, not on this particular project. They'll stay the same because they are what they are. Except for when we have an RDA, and Neil could explain that a little bit more when, I think it's Procter and Gamble's gonna come off in a couple years. Correct, Neil?
That's correct.
Okay, so that, when they come off of their RDA, and that's a whole nother big, huge discussion, then, that will give us more taxes. Right now, Procter and Gamble, when they came in, they worked with the county, they worked with the school district, and they got some tax breaks up front in order to put some infrastructure into their building in order to be able to have that big, incredible building there with all these wonderful jobs that people have in our community. And so those are usually 20-year, I believe, is that a 20-year deal? Do you remember? The increment
Yes.
payments? So
Yes,
it's
for
ready
20
to come
years.
off. Okay, so I guess that's, and if I wanted to make a point, it's really, I know it's a lot of things. I know some people don't like the 9th grade in high school. Some people don't like 4 middle schools. But overall, the longest, most pressing issue that I've heard is I just don't want to pay more taxes. And I get it. I'm obviously a little bit older. I'm going to be on a fixed income in a short time. I get it. And, I've got in-laws that are on fixed incomes. Both my parents are deceased, but I get it. But at the same time, I also see people lined up at, pizza joints and driving up down the streets, and that $25 gets whisked away with driving to Logan and back, or maybe to Salt Lake and back in a heartbeat. So I'm just sharing with you my heartfelt feelings. And so from there, what I'd like to do is maybe have both Neil and Corey will talk a little bit about, we have done a lot of work with architects and with construction companies to try to find out what the numbers are to add on to Bear River High School and Box Elder High School, to be able to upgrade CTE mostly at Box Elder High and add enough classrooms to be able to put another 600-700 kids in there. At Bear River High School, the needs are a little bit differently, but fairly similar, and add on enough for 500 kids. Is that about right? I did that 600-700 up on this end, so. And then, yes.
Sorry, I just have one question. Where do you see the bond payment on, are they on those tax papers?
It's just part of our.
Oh, it's just part of it.
So that will drop off. Neil, is that correct? Is that on that tax, on my property taxes?
Yeah, every line item, it will be on there. I'm not sure how Box Elder County displays it, but for Weber County, they have a separate line item for the bond because of a separate line item in the tax calculation by law. It has to be that way.
But it will drop off. Okay, so, and also, we have a piece of property up in West Tremont. We don't want to call it the West Tremont Elementary. So what number are we getting up? ES, I think it was 12 or 14. ES, elementary school 14, so we don't want the West Tremont name to stick. We're gonna build up there. Now, ES 14, just elementary school. I don't know, it's 12, 13, or 14.
Yes, for extensional standards.
Yeah. ES 14, that was Corey's coming up with, because, when the time comes, the Board of Education, in one of their policies, has the right to name it whatever, I get you. So it took me a while. I kept, why are you calling it ES 14 anyway? So every once in a while, I get to stand on the soapbox and give an impassioned plea, but this is the end of my impassioned plea. So with that, Corey, I think he's been really involved because we would go to these meetings, there'd be 4 or 5 of us that from the district office, I just decided to step back because I trust Keith, I trust Corey, and I trust Neil. And I went and did, whatever that is. I could never explain to you what I do. So, because my kids say to me, what do you do, Dad? I said, I really don't know. I just talk to a lot of people a lot of the time. I go to a lot of meetings. And so with that, I don't know how to get this started, but you want to talk about some numbers that we've got between Neil, Corey, and Keith.
So is this Neil's presentation?
Yeah, I have some stuff to share here. If I could start off with this and then move over to Corey and to Keith. So just a recap of what we did, presentation last week, or sorry, last month, about the debt that we need to incur to be able to build these schools. So we, on a bond value of $110 million, have interest rate of 5% conservative, because interest rates can vary a lot depending on what's going on in the economics of the world. Case in point, prior to the Trump tariffs being announced, the interest rate on new bonds for school district projects was about 3.8%. They skyrocketed to over 5% after the tariffs were announced, and now they're coming down. So this is why we have this 5% amount here. So on $110 million for 5% interest rate, we would gather about $8.8 million would be our annual payment. And we built that, and I built a little bit of cushion into our tax rates for this year in case that 5% went above that. Say it went to 5.2 or 5.3, we still have enough revenue, new revenue in our capital projects fund to be able to still do these projects. I want to preface this right here. That's where we're at right now. So then I work with our advisor at Zions Bank. We have an municipal advisor who advises us on bonds and all things school financing. And they proceeded to give us a rough estimate where we would be at this fall. So remember, rates were at 3.8%. They went up to over 5%. Now they're down below 5%. So if we were going to issue a bond, we could, with our current available money in capital funds, we could get up to $120 million of proceeds. Now let me explain why. This number here, this $114 million, that's what we would issue in bonds. But because school district debt is very desirable, because school districts hardly ever default on payments. They don't go out of business. Because we have the property tax and ability, we can always raise taxes to cover our obligations if needed. We don't always do that, but we can. So our debt at 5%, actually, people pay more for the debt. For example, we call a par rate. If a bond is issued for $100 and the debt is very desirable, people will pay you $105 for that debt. That when you only want $100, they're paying you extra money. That's the case for us right now. Is that our effective interest rate would be about 4.3% on a 5% bond. So essentially, instead of only getting $114 million, we get $120 million at current rates right now, based on what we proposed, what we need, and what we have available in our capital projects fund. Do we have any questions so far?
Neil, I think if you could clarify, when you say bond, you mean lease revenue bond, which is different
Yes.
from a general obligation bond, which was voted
Correct.
on a year ago.
So
Thank you.
a bond is just a long-term financing instrument.
Yep.
So I guess it almost like a term of art. There's general obligation bond that voter approves, and there's a long-term financing instrument that schools obtained for capital purposes. Is not, they call it a bond, but it's not the same connotation as if a voters approved it. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Okay.
So just
So
to
it's 100
clarify, there's
Sure.
the 14 versus the 120, this extra 6 million is actually coming from the bank, not from community members. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct. Actually coming from investors. Investors are willing to pay more for our debt because it's more secure. So the investor is paying more for our bonds or the bonds we issued than we're asking for. That's where the extra money comes from. So if we look also here, I wish I had a highlighter here, but down the corner here, our first payment, if we went through this in the fall, would be $2.8 million in fiscal 26 or upcoming fiscal year. The following year, our payment would be $9.1 million. Our tentative capital rates the board approved last month would generate about $9.3 million in new revenue. So we can cover this with new revenue without dipping into reserves based on our current tax rates and current property values. So have in mind, this is $120 million. So we've been working with the various different architects involved in our projects as the board approved through the RFP process. And this is where we came down to. And I think I'll let Corey, we have this, we shared this before. This is kind of where we're at. You want to speak to this and our needs and what our plans are?
As far as both builds or just on Bear River so far?
Well, just right here for Bear River, then we'll go to the next project and down from there.
So in evaluating what Bear River would need to bring ninth grade, you have to look at what the ninth grade curriculum is and what's already there at Bear River High. It's not set up with enough facilities to bring in a whole nother curriculum. You know, a family moves in and they have a high school student, yeah, we can enroll them and bring them to classes, but we look at all that they need to offer for that student to be scheduled in the classes. We would need additional educational space for every curriculum that's offered. And one place or one part, Keith can speak to this too, that we want to increase at Bear River High is their CTE offerings. So we have a weld shop, we don't have a wood shop that's full on woods. We don't have a auto shop. So if a student wants to do auto or woods, they need to outsource to Bridger, half a day to take a class, which they do. But Box Elder, in comparison, Box Elder has a woods program and an auto program. Working with Ben Wiley, our CTE director, on all of this, there's a lot that we can do to beef up the offerings in CTE and get these kids prepared for life. And so that would be a main component of this that would be different than Box Elder, is a new CTE building, because the one that they currently have was built in early 1970s, I believe, and it just is not, it doesn't have the space to provide the programs that they would need. Questions on Bear River so far? So that cost, when we initially started looking at this and the board asked for some ideas on cost, we went out to some architects and some contractors and tried to get some general ideas. And we were hitting on this cost of about 35 million to add on to the high schools. As we get closer and focus it down on the designs that we're doing, we're finding that was too conservative of a number for what we really need. And the last thing I would want to do is go out and do some kind of a construction project, and 2 or 3 years later, we're saying, oh, okay, we're bringing in another 10 portables just because that wasn't meeting the needs. So it's kind of that balance. Right now, at Bear River High School, we're sitting at about 39-40 million. But Neil, this last one doesn't have the increased CTE building, correct?
It has 20,000 square feet. I added that in here. What it doesn't have is because we took out the demolition. That was $3.9 million. So that's why it came down to 34 million.
So hopefully we can hit that. That's higher than what our initial ballpark idea was.
So on this, I want to clarify the top section, the 35 million. That's what we intend to finance through a long-term financing instrument with Zions Bank. The rest of this, the bottom portion is what we call soft costs, and those costs will be paid with existing capital funds. We have right now about $22.5 million in our capital fund. So we have sufficient funds to cover these other soft costs. We wouldn't borrow for those.
Okay.
And
three of
our board members run the the facility advisory committee, and they've been involved in these processes to some degree as much as they could. You or any of the other board members have any questions or any additional input from what your experiences have been?
I've been really impressed how, members of that committee, I know like our middle school principal, our high school principal, we brought in, Mr. Rhodes to look at CTE stuff. We brought in different teachers to look at different, anyway. I've been so impressed with the architectural firm that they've been reminded, this is our budget, how can we slim this down without regrets in the future? They're really responsive to those suggestions. At looking at things and reworking them and making it as tight fiscally as possible.
Neil, was there anything else? Oh.
I was mostly on the box seller, I didn't go there, so, but I agree with Tiffany, I think they were very responsive, and I think they're trying to do, I like what you said, slim down without regrets. I think that's a really good way of saying it, because there's ways to slim down, but problems in the future, so.
Do we want to move on to our next, to the Bear Box Elder High now, or do we have other questions on Bear River?
Keith, anything to add?
Let's move ahead, Neil.
All right.
At Box Elder, we went through the same process of trying to evaluate our needs and came up with some different things. And we're still in that process of trying to slim down. You know, of course, we want to have everything new, but that just isn't financially or fiscally responsible. And so some of the older parts we're still gonna have to live with and do the best we can. As far as Box Elder High School, and one of the focuses, so the main focus when we started this whole process is we said, the main purpose of this is academics. This is for academics of these ninth graders coming into the high school, which they're already high school students, but they've been housed at the middle school. And so some people could say, oh, well, you're doing that for athletics. We're doing all of this for academics. And ninth grade, part of academic, what Bear River has, and they feel like they can address the PE requirements with what they currently have. There is one piece of that in Bear River that they would need an additional auxiliary gym. When we did the renovation back in 08, 09, they lost their auxiliary gym, small gym. Both high schools had a large venue gym and a small gym. But in that renovation, they lost the small gym. And so we would need to add another gymnasium space for Bear River High, but that would not be a new venue gym. Venue, when I say venue, I mean that's where UHSAA play all their competitions, that's where you have bleachers for spectators. So we would not have that at Bear River, but we would need an auxiliary gym to provide additional CE opportunities for ninth grade.
So is that the 9,696,000 at Bear River for PE?
Yes, yeah.
Is that what, and then for Box Elder, the 10,672 for the venue.
Okay, so at Box Elder, we would keep the same venue gym. We're not building new venue gyms at either of the schools. But at Box Elder, they have the venue gym, and they have a small gym, and they have the auditorium gym across the street. But they also have more students. They have a higher enrollment. So we would need that additional PE space. And it was determined that we would look toward a field house that would provide that PE space. At Bear River, you know about Bear River, they use their field house for PE during the day. Yeah, they use it for athletics, but the main purpose of that is PE during the day. And this is what this room would be, is PE during the day. It would have some classrooms in there. And a benefit of this is that we have a need to provide additional PE locker room space in the main part of the school. Actually,
Especially on the side.
yes, mainly on the girls' side. This is also a need at Bear River, and that auxiliary gym would have some classrooms, weight room that could also provide that at Bear River. And that's really crucial. Because a dad of former female athletes and just female students, just to have that space. And there are some federal requirements to provide that also. And so that's one piece of this puzzle. Where we were initially hoping that we could have all brand new CTE space. But because of the budget and trying to keep the cost down, that's not going to work.
So this number here does not include, Corey and I asked the architects to change the demolition of the current CT space and leave it as is, and we'll remodel it. So this line for $2.8 million of new CTE space, it does not reflect that change. We're waiting on that change from the architects. So our bottom dollar would probably come out closer to 45 million for the hard construction costs of Box Elder High.
Keith, do you, off the top of your head, do you have the enrollment differences between Bear River and Box Elder High School?
It's up here at the top, Corey. 2,200 students is a projected new enrollment.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, this would, I think currently, what are we right now? 1,600.
So it wouldn't be 42. So with the same with Bear River.
Again, the last thing we want to do is build a building and 2 years later bring portables in. That doesn't make sense.
Another thing that, some of the additional classroom space had to be because we have 5 portables currently at Box Elder High. We have 4 portables currently at Bear River High. So that has to be part of a issue so that those portables would go away.
Do we have any questions on Box Elder High before we go on our next one? All right. West Tremont Elementary. So we have a plan that's already been designed. It's ready to be bid out.
Forget on that same number. ES14.
Well, so we gave this plan to one of our current contractors, asked them to provide us a rough estimate of build costs. So plan is for about 700 students, which is about 82,000 square feet, which if you compare that to Golden Spike at 107,000 square feet, much smaller. Current construction costs will come in about $458 per square foot on the high end, and which is about $38 million. With our contingency in there, we're about $39 million around there in construction costs. And when we add in this $39 million plus the 49 for Box Elder High and the 35 for Bear River High, we come in at about $122 million, which is within $2 million of our potential bond proceeds. We can build all 3 of these schools with the current proceeds that we have a budget for in the current tax rates. So I want to illustrate here that we're on track to do what we have set out to do earlier this year and within budget. Do we have questions on this?
So let's just make another comparison, Neil. For those of you maybe not familiar with Golden Spike, Garland Elementary, that design that we have at Garland Fielding and 3 Mile Creek. Garland Elementary is approximately 73,000 square feet. This is just barely under 83,000 square feet, so it's about 10,000 square foot bigger. It's a single level plan, just like Garland Elementary is a single level plan. All the design, it has not been built before, but all the design is there. Property is already has all the civil done as far as utilities. It's prepped and ready to go. Back in 2017, it was determined that the enrollment wasn't there at the time to justify building this building. So we have it now that we could go there.
But had we built that building, it would have been a $14 million build cost instead of.
I don't want to say that, Neil. Pressing.
It goes back into the superintendent's comments about how things just get more expensive, and it illustrates we have the same building, nothing's changed, and here's the cost to build it now versus in 2017.
Also, I think we need to point out that if we would have built it then, we probably would have destroyed or sold North Park Elementary, and we would still now need to build another building because of the growth.
Yes.
As we are assuming we're gonna have to do now is build this building and keep North Park as an active school to be able to handle the growth.
Yeah, and to that point, people, it'd be easier for somebody to say, well, isn't North Park still old? Building another elementary school doesn't change that North Park was built in 1962. But the portables at North Park, McKinley, and Garland is saying that they want a couple of portables. That amount of portables fills half of this school. Automatic, without any enrollment increase, without any new move-ins, which, you know, Fremont, that's really increasing on the number, on the amount of housing being built. So it doesn't even address that by saying it'll fill half the building, but what it does do is now you have, even though it's an older building, you have an enrollment at that building that is the right size for that building. Right now, we have 9 portables at North Park. We take those 9 portables out, we have fewer students using the plumbing. We have fewer students needing prep time, or teachers needing prep time, and so it's more easy, and Heidi Jo could speak to this. Our prep aides are pushing into the classrooms because we don't have the space in the buildings, but getting this, or getting those portables out, puts us at the right enrollment. Heidi Jo, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
The majority of our elementary schools have push-in preps. On the south end, there's a couple of schools that's a little better. The enrollment at 3 Mile Creek is decreasing over time, but not necessarily at Willard. We're picking back up kindergarten students. So then more push-in preps at Willard than they do. And I think Discovery has a couple of preps that they pull out, but at almost all of the rest of our buildings, particularly all of those on the north end, teachers are having preps pushed into their classroom for art, music, character ed, STEM, and computers. So we no longer have computer labs or so kids are, the teacher has to stay in their classroom to prep while music is happening. And typically they use the projector while the teacher, you know, so she can't get on and look at her online curriculum or things like that.
Now at Garland, they have their art and music up on the stage, and he is in the gym, and they have to battle that as well. So it's hard. Those prep teachers are frustrated, but kind of best they can.
Many of our schools like Lakeview have even taken what's up on the stage and they're holding classes in there for small group instruction. So music's pushing into the class regardless of having a stage. Thank you. That's a good point.
So I also want to point out, because we already have those plans designed, all we need to do is do an RFP for a contractor, and this can go out to bid. Realistically, this could go out to bid and start construction the same timeline as our high schools do. This is a ready-to-go project, and it really can fill the needs we have in the Tremont area immediately.
So this one would be ready beginning of 2027 fall school year?
Potentially, that depends on the contractors and their scheduling, but we're ready to start on the same timeline. I'm unfamiliar, Corey, how long did Golden Spike take to build? Was it a 2-year build or longer?
It was about, so we demoed Thunderson in October. We broke ground in February. And we opened school the following fall. So what is that, 18 months?
But we don't have to do, this ground's ready to go. We don't have to demo. Utilities are stubbed in. It's ready to start.
So it can be a similar timeline. The crunch that we get into as far as timeline is going to be getting equipment as far as electrical gear, air handlers, chillers, that kind of thing. As soon as this goes to bid, they get on the waiting list to get those items.
So realistically, if we move forward with this plan, we would want to start an RFP process for a contractor next month and go through that process to choose a contractor so we could start on selection of equipment and get that process going.
So I have a question for Neil. If we were to do just the AS14 project, what would that increase the tax rate? We were told that if we do all three, we're looking at about 25-33 to increase for that first couple of years. What would just be the AS14?
Back of the envelope math is 1/3 of the cost. So $8 a month-ish. Because we only need to finance $40 million, not $120 million. And so the service on the debt of $40 million is probably like right around $2 million a year or something like that, depending on the terms we use. I can tell you that in the long-term financing market for municipal projects, larger projects have a bigger subscription rate, meaning more investors are looking to invest than smaller projects.
So we lose out on that bonus $6 million.
Yeah, we lose out on the interest rate. Instead of having the effective interest rate of probably a 4.3, it might be closer to 4.5 or 4.7 on a smaller project. You get the best efficiency for, I'll say, larger projects. For us, $100 million is a large project. Salt Lake School District is going out for $700 million over several years. But I would say $100 million is probably the sweet spot to get a good interest rate and get enough investor interest in that project.
Any other questions? Like, Keith, Corey, do you have any more for us? I don't cut you off.
No, I don't.
Any questions, Corey? Keith?
I don't really have anything, I mean, I can answer any questions you might have. We've looked at all of the curriculum offerings, that would come over. Obviously, sophomore, juniors, and seniors don't take ninth grade classes, but some do. There's some kids that, for various reasons, will postpone a graduation requirement that was offered at ninth grade and wait. And sometimes you can take it in high school, but oftentimes you can't. For example, geography is only taught at the middle schools. Art skills, though, is taught at both places. So some kids will delay. Computer science could be done at the middle school, but also could be done at the high school. So there are some areas where people delay. They might not take a fine arts credit or a CTE credit in ninth grade. They'll wait to do all that stuff in high school. So putting the 9, 12 together, you'll be able to have kids accelerate where they've got areas of interest. You'll also have kids that have had other interests delay. They can come back and take all those within the same building. But not every ninth grader is going to have access to all the elite classes, right? It's kind of a priority schedule where the seniors get first dibs, then the juniors, the sophomores, and then the freshmen. And so anyway, all that stuff's being examined as we speak. And if this is the decision that we go, we're ready to do that. Obviously, Karina, 5 in HR will be looking at the staffing and other things that are going to be associated with that as well. And because there'll be some movement in both ways.
I feel like we've heard a lot from our secondary, middle school and high school administrators about the benefits of having ninth grade in that grade band. And then we've heard a lot from our transportation department about how that can affect that as well. So I guess if we have any further questions about those things, it's a good time to ask.
Yeah, question, maybe, going back to the 2 high schools. I had somebody tell me that they were told that, that there would be also upgrades in the, oral facilities and drama facilities. I didn't see that in the.
So part of the classroom space, I mean, there's going to have to be more fine space when you bring ninth grade program over. So that's being part of kind of the initial design. But in terms of is the auditorium going to get bigger on both ends? No. But there's going to have to be another fine arts
Fire rooms down
where people could play instruments, etc. So that is part of the general classroom space, not really specific to like CTE, but it's more all the classrooms that we need.
So there is plan. There is plan to put another choral room.
Yeah.
Band room.
Or it's going to be a room that you understand ninth grade has one class, if you will. So they don't need a whole space all by themselves to bring ninth grade into the orchestra. They can do that in one period. But then maybe the band, there's a ninth grade band, so maybe they just need one. And so that now it becomes a multi-person.
Which is doing right now.
Which is what it's doing. Yeah, exactly. And so all of those things are kind of being set so that we meet the needs, but don't go crazy. It's okay, everybody gets their own individual space because there might not be a full schedule of that, but it could be, accommodated that.
So with this, one time we talked about these being out to the west of Box Elder. With those rooms for the.
That's on the table. There's also a place to put it in the front of where the old school kind of was when they did the construction back in '07, to put it in front of the school. That discussion is being talked about as well. One of the concerns that architects are talking about if you go west is, and if you haven't been at Box Elder High when the bell rings between classes, there is a bottleneck, and the bottleneck occurs as you come from the west wings into that common space. So this idea that if we have another 500 kids even further west, and although most of them will stay, because they're ninth graders, so they'll take their math, science, language, arts, foreign language. But if they take release time is the far east that you can go. And so they're gonna have to walk through that space. If they take a PE class, they are gonna have to walk to the east and then walk to the north. And so that space right there is pretty crazy. I do that it's crazy. If administrators just stand there because it is crazy. Yeah, so you know exactly.
Well, and I can speak to this just a little bit. I've been on that committee where they're like the architects and I've sat on some of these, and they really are taking the flow of the class, like they're doing their best they can to make it not just,
No.
we know we have and there's nothing set in stone, like the ideas, and there are certain fire groups, certain restrictions we have to have, there's things, but they're taking it, they're really good about what I call pitch points and flow and where the ninth grade classes will be and the what do you call it, the fine arts group like, they have a bigger room, like they're designing, that's what they're doing, and it's.
But the idea maybe, again, depending on where the board goes with this, I mean, there's designs that are kind of just in the infancy stage of what this looks like. But it could be put in the front of the building. I know that seems a little odd, but that's where the old building was back, when there was 9 to 12.
So I guess in front of like where the principal's office is.
Yeah, east of that, east of the gym space, that all used to be classrooms, back before they, built. And something about this, in fact, Corey asked this question to me, back when we had 9 through 12, when I taught there, but before the rebuild in 07, we had already moved the 9th grade out. So when the, remodel occurred in 07, they built less classrooms. They only built the ones that were needed for the current configuration in terms of how many students there were. There were more classrooms that got ripped off that didn't get replaced in 07 because we were at that point only at 3. So all those questions, the design, again, all they are is a stick, a picture on a, and there's nothing, there hasn't been a name, there hasn't been they're kind of, here's a space, here's a space, and they're kind of counting them 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 math classes.
We need 4 math classes, you need, 4 language arts classes, you need 3 science classes, and then you need some facts, and you need some fine arts, and you need all of that. So they kind of are just tweaking with what that looks like right now. Great question, though.
There was, I think it's happened, construction to fix the fire curtains in the auditorium that should be happening sometime this year, right, Corey?
So, yeah, so that's a completely.
But that, so if you do see that there is construction happening in the auditorium, that was just out of the maintenance budget.
I mean, one of the things that'll be a little bug, is you're gonna go to 2 lunch. Boxville High doesn't serve a lot of students, in terms of lunch. And you'd think because they have the most students that they would serve the most lunch, but they don't. Other schools serve a lot more, like ACYI. Why? Because there's 1,000 kids and none of them could drive. So they serve a lot more food there. Boxville High, I think they serve 500 meals a day, if that, and there's 1,500 students. And so there will probably be double lunch. They worry about parking. Well, none of these 9th graders are probably driving legally unless they live in Corinth. So, just kidding, my friends. But we're not going to increase the parking lot with more students, but we will increase potentially parents dropping off. And right now, that's kind of a mess. And so they're kind of addressing, how do you get parents to drop off safely versus buses? What does that all look like? So again, all of this.
It's a dedicated staff parking lot, so that is separate from the students.
Yeah, that's always been a struggle. There's always been a designated staff.
Yeah.
But as kids turn 16 and get to drive, all spaces are compromised. I'm sorry, I shared with you, I got asked to just kind of do some talking points of 6, 8, 9, 12. In Utah, there are 40 districts, 20 of them are on a 9-12 schedule. There is research. If you look at ChatGPT, and I know it's not perfect, but it's a lot smarter than me, and it can conceptualize information throughout the United States pretty quickly. In 30 minutes, I was able to gather more information with more resources than I ever did an hour ago. But my point is it's more common, 6, 8, 9, 12 in the United States. That doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's worse. It's not even data that 10, 12 is better. I know this, when you have one less transition in grades 6 through 9, that is a significant amount of, that data does exist. That's 6 through 8 or 6 through 9. Like even when we got 6, 7, 8, 9, I know we like it, but in terms of what the data says about having another transition 2 years later has a negative effect. On everybody, no. On the general population of the research, yes. So I've just given you some data, and obviously I can talk about it, but I shared it with you. You can look at it, and it's all things. I mean, if you go to a 6-8 model, I will tell you from a financial, if you're trying to save money, you can build onto Box Elder Middle School gym to the north, and you don't have to buy property. You have the property. You don't have to, you can keep the auditorium. And that auditorium can be shared with both middle schools. When there's a play, you now have, and you don't have to build a new new auditorium, but it can be used as a multi-use. So you don't have to build a gym, and you don't have to build an auditorium. That could still be used on this end. Now, the north end is not quite as, they don't have an auditorium at Bearwood Middle. So anyway, it's not a fix-all, but one of the feedback, some of the feedback we received was, you don't even know where you're gonna build it. You have space and location and, so some of this stuff is, I have friends, family that live in Pocatello. Pocatello's a good place. They have multiple middle schools that go into their high schools. And it's maybe sometimes it's good to get a break if, socially or behaviorally, we can jump to another school. Or I don't have to be with the same kids, 6 through 12. I can say, you know what, this is kind of my group, 6, 7, 8, and then, oh, here's some new kids now, and now we're a school in grades 9 through 12. So I understand there's lots of point of views, and I respect each of those. But to your point, if you want to look at that document that I shared with you and ask any questions now or later, I'm more than welcome to answer. And again, these are just some of the things. So that's really all I have to say.
What, are we having a conversation about like what we want to do then?
Well, that's,
Yes, sense.
let's do that. And if it's all right, well, I'll just start off, if that's okay. Unless there are further questions for Corey or Keith or Superintendent or Joe. I feel like we've talked, but to reiterate, the more I try to think outside the box and think about other plans and ideas and solutions to, on priority number 1, my personal top priority was the overcrowding that we have in our schools. That's my top priority right now, because I feel that it causes student safety issues. It causes education best practice issues, and it causes employee satisfaction issues. I think that overcrowding affects all 3 of those. Great. This solution, though some see flaws, and even I see flaws in it, solves the most overcrowding issues on all levels of education. It touches elementary. It doesn't replace our old middle schools that so many people in the community just are so tired of those old buildings. It actually helps us to use those buildings longer and extend their life, in my opinion. And it touches high school in that CTE space. I think those opportunities that we are seeing nationwide be so important to our kids, and just the CTE portion of those high schools alone gets me on board, because there are kids that we're losing from high school that I really think that if they saw those opportunities more available to them, they would stay, and they are going to stay. The trades are so important in their lives and our future, and just that piece of it is so important to me. I don't know, I look to, as not more so, but at least equally, and maybe a little more so, I look to the professionals in our schools that our leadership team have hired, our principals, our all of our administrators, our teachers. And from what I'm being told from the people who are in the trenches at our schools, this grade band configuration makes sense. I grew up with it. It worked for me and my generation, and I get that we live in a different time now, but I see it working. I know there are disagreements in the public. I just would agree to disagree on that issue. Anyway, I think this touches each level of education for the least amount of money, we could build 3 elementary schools, and that's all we would be able to do, and that would only touch our elementary issues, right? We can't afford to build 2 middle schools. So we could build 1 middle school, and then it wouldn't affect both ends of our district. There's this, after looking over and over and over again, to me, this just makes sense. Even though the tax, I wish that we had every year just voted for 2017 to maintain the current tax rate every single year. And we would be far ahead of our situation now than we are. That's looking back, and I haven't been on the board that long. But starting in 2017, what if we had just voted every year to keep the tax rate the same? We'd be further ahead than we're going to be. So that's where I stand.
I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of teachers, a lot of administrators. They all agree with benefits of ninth grade being there and having less transitions. But then from the tax point, I agree with what we said, we can't do 1 middle school and then wait 15 years to do another one. That's not fair. And it would, I think, take that long to be able to do another truth and taxation or bonds to do that. And then elementary gets left in the dust. So I like this fund, and I wish we could do everything. I wish we had the money to do another elementary school here. But I think as far as solving overcrowding, which is my #1 issue, this plan solves that. Almost everyone. There'll still be some pockets that have portables, but they'll be more manageable, and then the projects to fix those pockets will be much smaller. So, like thinking about Golden Spike, I was not on the board when that decision was made to go Golden Spike, and I didn't necessarily love it or agree with it. Just how I ended up being on the board now. But it's like after being on the board and going through this process of trying to figure out what we're doing, I am so grateful for the board in 2020 that had the courage to say, yes, we're gonna build that school now. They didn't kick the can down the road, and it saved $25 million. If we were to build Golden Spike now, I think it went like 60. I can't remember.
I think he said it would be about, it was 275 square foot and it'd be about 425 square foot.
It's 101 square feet.
107, 103 square feet.
So I mean, if the board back then would have caved to some pressure and not built that school, we would have now had Mountain View and Foothill and North Park and McKinley. We'd be trying to figure out how to solve overcrowding and failing schools for 5 elementary schools. And there's no way we would ever be able to afford that. So I'm really grateful that the board did that then. I know it's a really hard decision and it's asking the community a lot, but there's $20 a month, 25 is doable. Something everyone can stop going to this. Something, there's ways to figure that out. The investment in kids having these better opportunities for our community is far greater. $5.
Well, I really want the grade band changed because my kids are 2 years apart in school, and I love the idea of having my kids in the same school more often. I think it helps those kind of relationships. And as a parent, having to go drop my kids off at elementary, intermediate, middle, or high, it's just, there's just so many administrators to work with. It seems really difficult. I mean, it's doable because we've been doing it, but it seems harder. Also, I hate to bring it up, but it's the only thing I have. And I was the PTA president, and volunteers are hard. And that intermediate school struggles, the middle school struggles, and I don't think by the time you get to the high school, I don't know what kind of, I'm not there yet. I'm not even in high school, but anyway, all I'm saying is like, then parents don't have to feel like they're stretched. Like you have volunteering parents and they want to be in every school and they're trying to do everything and they're just getting really tired. And so I love this plan. And that being said, I would say we should put it on hold for a hot minute. I really think I think it's just a hard time for our community members. I would vote to say we need the elementary school. I don't think it's a want. I don't think that can be pushed down the road. I think we need a new elementary school. And I am curious on why how come Bob Selder doesn't need that, the addition to Discovery? Like, are they really okay not to do that?
I don't think that's necessarily the assertion of the truth in taxation right now, just that truth in taxation could only cover so much. So prioritizing the fact that there's 17 portables on the north end versus the number between Discovery and Lakefield, and looking to possibly use money from reserve to cover Discovery as well. So, and that's based off of the demographer that's wanting that for school.
I guess I would, instead of biting off so much, and I really want this, I really do. But I feel like giving the elementary school, putting on the Discovery Edition, and then buying land for the middle school so that it shows that this is our plan, this is where we're headed. And then I actually want to continue to get the renderings so that when they're saying, well, you don't have I can't vote yes on this because you don't actually have a plan. Where is it gonna be? What's it gonna look like? Then we're able to then maybe in 28, 29, whenever that is, try to go to bond and say, here is our plan. This is what we need as we go forward. And I don't know, because I'm not very good with numbers as much as others, but if we get the elementary school Discovery Edition, and I don't know how much land would cost for the middle school, if that can all be done with $15 or less on each household, like I would be so happy with that. And we could add on the AC. Parents have, that's another concern that it's not everyone's concern, but you talk to the parents that have students in those hot classrooms and they're saying, my kids come home and they're just so miserable. They don't want to go to school because they're so hot. And I just feel like, in fact, somebody as a parent I was talking to this morning that they pointed out, our students are in the classroom longer than they're even with us at home. And if they're not in a good environment, then we aren't doing them a service either because they have to be there for so long of their day. And I think it would go a long way in our community if we just pause. I know it's going to cost more. I know it's going to be a hard one to swallow in 2 or 3 years, but I honestly feel like if we just get those elementaries, prepare for the next step. I would even be, depending on where we're at with the cost, if we do like prepping the high schools, if we can do that within that littler increase, I would vote yes for that, just prep it. But I want it to be less, that we can say, okay, this is what we want for our taxpayers. And hopefully in a few years where everything is kind of settled, maybe having a more steady, economy, maybe that would help a lot too. Because I feel like everything's kind of up and down. But, in the future, which might be worse, cookies.
So can I add to Stephanie, your comments? I want to illustrate something really important here. A new middle school is $75 million before you buy the land. So a new middle school and a new elementary school in West Tremont, it's $110 million. If we do the high schools now, we alleviate the overcrowding in both middle schools and elementary schools by several hundred kids, and it becomes more manageable. By doing the high schools this way and moving the grade bands, it's the best bang for our buck. It will cost us double if we don't do it this way, and we do at elementary school and the new middle school, and then do the high schools in the future. It'll cost us double what we're proposing right now.
I appreciate that, and I completely agree and understand. I still think, though, I think it's buying the land and preparing ourselves for that next big, and like keeping the people informed and saying this is how much it's going up, this is how much it's costing. I don't know, I just, so many people are emailing and saying that they just can't afford this, and I can't go into their house and look at their own financials and say, well, you can cut out, you know, this trip to, I don't keep spending money on. I know I've never been to Disneyland with my family because I don't feel like we can afford it. Like, we all take cuts in some way, but I feel like this is overreaching what we have, and going to that big amount, is that putting us in a situation where in the future it's gonna be hard? I don't, I'm so new on this board, I really don't feel like I have the background to really say much except for how I've been. So that's, I'm sorry. You're right. I think that's.
Yeah, so, I am fully supportive of this plan moving forward because, and a couple of reasons. Number one, I think this is the direction that my priority is doing a high quality education for our students, and I want students who want to be in school. And right now, I have students in 3 of our schools, and they actually they're good students, but they don't love it. And they don't have, I'll just leave it at that. So, and I'm not saying building new buildings is gonna automatically make things fun and useful, but kind of like what Tiffany was saying with the CTE, there are careers that are going to be happening that we do not even know about yet. And if we're losing schools because, or losing kids in education, we're just putting them behind the 8 ball. And I'm passionate about education. I'm a lifelong educator. I grew up as a doctor of educators. I truly believe the best way to affect our communities and our country, like go out from wherever we have a community or county or whatever, is to educate students and provide them with the things that they need. And if they don't have the space or the safety or the programs, whatever that they have to want them to be there, I think we need to do that. And I look at it this way: when my husband and I were first married, I was teaching, and then when my oldest son was born, we made the decision that I would stay home, cut our salary in half, basically. And we made sacrifices. We said, this is important to us, and we're going to do it. And what did that mean? That meant, sorry, I'm emotional about this, but it meant I made sacrifices. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't have the fanciest cars. My husband couldn't go 50 miles an hour in his car or whatever. I learned how to budget and shop and only buy things on sale. And when it was on sale, I bought in bulk and I got the good price. Then when I didn't have to buy meat every week, I just went to my freezer. And I know not everybody is in a position to do that. And I'm not saying everybody should, but I'm saying as a district, when we're like the way I envision this is we're trying to buy in bulk to prepare for our future. And if we're just trying to do it as we go, it is costing us millions of dollars more. And that's just putting it down on the next generation, or even 10 years down the road. And we know that young families right now are having a hard time just even getting in a house. What's going to happen when we say, okay, now we want all of these things? And I know that there's different perspectives, and there are people on the other end that say, well, I'm on a fixed income and I can't afford it now. I see it all, but I honestly think I really feel like we have to make the decisions that are best for our students. And if this is best for our students and long-term saves money, like just the 2 examples that Cora gave of like, you know, the turf and the Ground Creek building. And those were small projects and small things. I would Tiffany, I wish we would have just voted every year to just keep the rate up. And we have an economy that is up and down and all around. And people are like, well, I can't afford it. All my costs are expensive. Well, all of our school costs are expensive too. We can't just stay status quo and say, okay, we'll not raise anything because everybody else can. We still have to function. We still have to provide. We still have to do those things. So I think we have to make sacrifices, sometimes on the front end, looking forward to the future. And I think this is how, I think this, I'm saying with Tiffany as well, is like this hits the most people for the best bang for our buck. If we just do an elementary school, then that's going to help Fremont.
But it only helps 400.
And it helps those kids, and that's great, and we want to help those kids. But people I heard the most complaints about are the middle schools. And we don't have enough money to build 2 middle schools. But if we could alleviate it and make it so those middle schools are safer, meaning not earthquake safer, but meaning bodies jostling and pinch points and all of those kind of things, connected to teachers and administrators, I think it has the most benefits. And so, you know, I just feel like we've kicked the can, and I've been on the board for 7, 8 years, 7. And part of me feels bad. I feel responsible that we're in this position. We didn't do something sooner. And I don't want to push this onto someone else. I want to do something now because we can, and I think we should.
I feel like that there may be pros, there may be cons with this. My thing's always been, if we have a different plan, we need to take it to the voters. They're the ones that are financing it, and we should trust them to do what is best for their children and grandchildren. I just heard that there were 200 layoffs today at Brigham, with more to come, probably in a few more weeks. We've said that 40 to 60% of some of our schools have students and families that have pretty reduced lunch. They can't give up a lunch or give up a trip to this or this. They're giving up essentials. I am an eternal optimist. I think that the people will do what is best for them. The facts, and we've got Jamie and Kent now to help us to do that. If this is the plan that wants to go forward. I too am passionate about education. That's what my degree is in. That's what my background is in. That's why I've served on the board for 15 years. But I think that it comes down to, to me, it just is, we asked them last year for 20 and to turn around and say, we need 25 plus another 8, which will be 33. I can't feel good about that. And so I'm an optimist. If we give them the facts, we get it out. And if it's the plan they feel is best for their children and grandchildren, it will. So that's what I would say. Thanks, Ian.
I know that all of us, there's not one person on the board that wants to raise taxes. We've discussed that so many times for years. When the bond did not pass, overwhelmingly, everything I picked up since then, from everyone, seeing our information that we received back from parents, it isn't necessarily that they didn't want it. It was more that they thought it was just too expensive, and they didn't want the tax to raise that high. That many of the comments were very positive, that they thought it's very positive, very good for students. And so what we did, we went back as a board, and we said, okay, we need to rethink this. We're not going to do the whole bond because that's what they voted against. But what would you do? Because I feel that there's people like that we can do it a step at a time to see what we can do to keep the tax limit and to make it so it's better for the majority of the community. You know, as a, if the bond doesn't pass, it doesn't mean that we still don't have those problems. Because we do, they're still there, and we have to deal with it. We can't put on, as board members, we can't put our head in the sand and just say, oh, these things will go away. They're not going away. I've been in the board 10.5 years, and we've been discussing these things for those 10.5 years. They are not going to, we have to deal with it. And we're dealing with it on a more simple way with less taxes. And I just truly believe that we need to work due diligence. As a board member, I truly believe that our bottom line, and I think this is my number one priority, that we need to do what's best for kids. And that's what we're. Yes, we have to look at taxes, we have to look at all those different things, but the bottom line is, board member, we have to look for students of Box Elder County and say, okay, we have to do what's best for them. And I feel this is what's best for them. When I went to Box Elder High School, it was not important. I survived. Everything I heard about going in there, I'm sure it's said, thinking I set on fountains and on garbage cans as a ninth grader, everything, none of that ever happened. None of that. I think it's a good thing to do. I think the curriculum, which you think how it is today, it just works better than. And so I'm very supportive of going forward. In our due diligence, in a simple way, which we're doing. We can do that with the voting way, and we have the right to do that. And I know that that is going to be hard for some people, but I really feel that when I look back, when I went to school, I thought, you know, the board then probably had a bond of maybe $100,000. And that was a lot of money to them back then. I don't know what it was, but it was a lot of money. And I thought, you know, you have to pay it forward, you have to go on that are coming after you. And I think that's part of our role as a board member is to do that. And that's why I feel we can have.
Okay. That helps us understand each other's point of view. I think those priorities match up with what's just been said here. I have a question that I know I should know the answer to. Neil, are you hanging in there?
I'm here, yes.
What is the tax rate that this, not the change in dollar amount, but what is the tax rate that this proposed or the plan we're thinking about, what does that bring the tax rate up to?
Great question. 1 second, let me pull it up here. I have it here. 0.006978.
What is it right now?
That's what it will be. If we do nothing, it goes to 005590. So it's about 0.0013 rate change.
It's 970. 5590. 6978 0055.
Yes.
There's two much. So either way, it will be higher than what it was last year. It's yours.
No, it will go down. This last year was 005890.
I thought the superintendent said it was 00.
Well, that's, this is the combined and all of them.
It must be the combined of all of it. I was just,
I mean, this is from the state tax commission website for property tax. So this is the official source.
This was just the one.
yeah,
You just took the box, then the charge to levy or the state is levy.
So what would have been you could do it based on what the superintendent shared with
Something like that.
rates, is 0.0044. We do a comparison against that, but it will be, that was last year, 2024.
So I can pull that up. 1 second, please. Here's last year's rates.
So
Our certified rate last year was 005860.
That's the combination of all of them.
That's everything, yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to get back to comparing apples to apples with what the superintendent gave. And what he said was, on his 2024, he said it was 0,
Well, and that's the second line up there, right? 0.00442. That would be what the superintendent's was on the board.
that would be now, 0,
No, I think we'd have to scroll to the left to get what the,
This way?
well, so what does this rate include, like the basic school levy, the board, like, that.
Yeah, so it includes the basic school levy, which is mandated by law. We don't get MSP dollars unless we collect the basic school rate that the state legislature tells us we have to collect and the amount. Then we have the GO bond, which is what we voted in back in 2008 or 9. That's that amount there. Next, we have the capital levy. Then we had voted levy, and we had board local levy, and then we have the charter school levy. This board only controls capital, voted, and board.
Track the basic school levy and the charter school levy.
That's right. Those are imposed upon us. And the
voters.
voters control the GO bond, whether they approve it or not.
Can you scroll to the right just a smidgen now?
This way?
Well, I'm just trying to, so 0.001408 and point.
Neil, I have it zoomed on the screen, so it's a little bit larger.
Okay.
I just was trying to compare
Apples to
So I
apples.
have to scroll left and right.
Track that, 0.014.
Oh, so let me do this. Let me zoom out, David, so you can control that better. I had it zoomed to my side as well. Is that helpful?
Maybe that's a number you could email us, Neil,
So
or
I'm
when you have that exact number.
I'm not sure exactly what the question is. I know we asked what race, but what is the question we're trying to get at?
The superintendent was showing us from year to year, specifically just the Box Elder School District,
What shows up
Tax
on
rates.
property tax.
what shows up on our property taxes. So.
So the statewide collections may not show up on how Box Elder County displays the tax rates for the school district may not encompass the statewide collections, which are charter school and basic school levy. Because those
Right,
are
we
mandated by
understand
state
that.
law.
We understand that. We were just trying to compare apples to apples with what the superintendent was showing.
See on their tax.
So, okay, so
Figure it out. Well, yeah, but she's not.
0.004012. Will, the number I got.
Would increase.
But I looked at that.
Yeah, I think you're probably, what is the number?
Oh, so quick for it, that's what I'm saying is I just took this point, the total amount, and I subtracted the charter school levy and the basic school levy, which are not part of.
They're listed separately on here.
Those are listed separately on that. Rest of them are chunked together, right?
Yeah.
So that's all I did, is I just subtracted 0.5860. So if we subtract point, I just want to double check it, just right.
You think over there, we're doing two, the race.
0.4012. 4.012. So double zero, 4012.
Would be the 2020.
Which is, that's the 0.05860 if we don't raise it.
Well, so that number, this is going to go down this year because we have increased valuation in the county. So this 005860 will go down to a 0055.
Well, subtract for that instead.
Yeah, so for consistency purposes, let's display this year. So this year, if we don't do anything, for comparison's sakes, we would take 005590, subtract 001379, and subtract 0.000053.
I don't need to take up time here, so I'm gonna pay a meal. We'll email us that.
Yeah.
What will be listed on the tax form for this year? In the same place that the superintendent shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of others.
Yeah.
Not on top of the basis.
So
So,
those are items mailed to homeowners. The district doesn't have access to them unless a district, and they'll be
No, we just-
available.
we can,
We just want you to use the superintendent name number.
Okay.
That's what the,
on the record.
you all see on the record, that's why,
What'd you say, what?
I said 0.005526.
So what it would raise up to?
And would show.
That's my prediction, but that's based on.
Well, you remember that one sheet I put up there?
1379, so I'm not
Seven
like,
point two billion times 0.002.
well, that's what I'm saying. I think.
14, so that would be,
So that's what I'm saying, 0.55, where, when you start,
Yep.
it's 0.64,
it would be one.
this would be 0.55. So it's,
I think.
that's, I'm not saying that's the hard number, I'm saying by my math, that's what I see.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
2019. 2019. We need to move ahead, and the two items we have left before we close this portion of our meeting tonight is to discuss the breakfast meeting with city and county leaders. Can we do that, and how quickly can we do that?
Very quickly.
Okay, do you have?
I'll just lead by saying, just to recap what we did is we sent an invitation to all mayors in the county, to our county commissioners, and I know it was 2 weeks short notice. I know it's summer, but I was disappointed because we only had 4 show up. I'm very grateful for the 4 that showed up, our 4.
We're out of how many? Just curious.
I don't know how many, is there that many townships or?
Then we just estimated, because it had mayors from Garland, Deweyville, Tremont, and
Brigham City.
And lots.
And the positive thing is, though, we did have a discussion. We started talking about how we're gonna keep this going, it's gonna be quarterly. I think we decided January, I've got it in my notes. So we decided to, go, twice a year, try to encourage somebody else to host it, and I've got it in my notes somewhere to, to host it, see if we can build on this, to try to get a consistent, just to be able to talk about.
And everybody's looking and concerns from everyone around the area and growth and hardships, whatever it may be. It was a really good effort. The breakfast was great. Yeah, I came away feeling like that's a really good effort to start that collaboration process to work harder at that.
Each mayor took some time to talk about their particular city's issues and the things that they were facing, and I thought I just really thought it was a good meeting.
And we got some good input.
Right, and it was helpful to see it from their perspective. Like, I'm always, like, my lens is the district, which we cover the whole county, but to see what the city concerns are and problems, and put their lens on it, that was helpful for me to understand a little bit.
I listened to the recording and it was really hard to hear them talk. Was there one thing that surprised you that you were like, wow, I didn't know they were going through that? Or like, was there something that you were like, that is good to know?
That really surprised me when DJ said that they're planning on that. It would be like 13. I was still good. It's
Like a whole community, right?
Like, we're all that, like, they're, it's kind of plan.
25, maybe. That's like,
Yeah, because they're gonna
Well-
mix, yeah.
That was
That's crazy.
concerning.
It was interesting, their perspectives though, like on bringing business, like, as a district, we're like, we don't necessarily like to give, what do you call, RDC and tax incentives to bring people in, like, that takes money out of our pocket, but from their perspective, like, no, this is really good. So there was, it's an interesting perspective. Not a agree
I think they do don't they get a little taste of sales tax? But we
Yes.
don't.
Yeah.
So that helps them soften that increment financing a little bit.
Right.
I think our increment financing policy rubbed some people wrong in this county and city leadership. set a policy to help us, set boundaries and maybe they weren't used to it. It's a good person,
I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily
agree
agree, but if it's anyone there,
absolutely.
that's good, that.
In with the, rights.
Yeah, sure. Anything else on that? Let's move ahead to Robert's Rule of Order, and then I believe Marcy has already set up dinner for us before this board meeting, so.
Well, from the last board meeting, I had several of you talk to me, and as we looked at how board meeting action items take place, there's a time for discussion. Once the time for discussion is ended, then there's the vote. And so comments during the vote period are really not what Robert's Rules of Order happen in the rules. And so if something needs to be said, it needs to be said in discussion and not during the vote. So I'm just.
Which makes perfect sense because our comments are meant to persuade or explain, right? So if it's done after the vote, then that defeats the purpose where we can all have a discussion prior to, right? So.
I remember, remember this. When I was 2.5 years old, I was president of Connie, broke down at Basin.
Yes,
We got a big
Spanish Fork, yeah.
And that came up exactly, and I thought this is interesting, and so, and I think this is something we need to make sure we do. When we take a vote on something, and if there is a penny, that we always have to take a vote. Because that puts in the record that that person objected to that, what we are doing. Okay, and it puts their name into the record. And so if someone objects, then we take
A roll call. Okay.
and their name is put into the record that.
Okay.
Then after that, we go forward. Okay, but that's, I remember picking that up. That was very.
Thank you, and I apologize that I don't have it in my mouth, it's things.
Well, and most of the time, it's just something minor, but so we probably
Makes
should
sense.
do that, and I said that. Just to
Right.
get it right now.
So we will try to-
I would add that during public comment, I think we've started to get a little bit loose on that, make it more of an exchange, and it ends up, I think, leading to some confusion. So basically during the public comment time of our meeting, unless it's on the agenda, unless we have a very specific answer, we really shouldn't start in that discussion because it seems like it's not really what.
And even if it is on the agenda, that discussion, or if we hear question in public comment, if it's on the agenda, then that question can be answered during that agenda time, right? Not during public comment. Because then we may end up giving one person who gives public comment feedback and another one doesn't get anything. I think that's just it keeps it structured correctly. That's not a time to talk back and forth. That's a time to listen, email the person, outside of meeting time. Or if it's on the agenda, then we're able to clear up those questions or come back to in that agenda.
This is the right word policy.
Right, and
Listen to public comment, but that's where we listen.
Right.
Comment, that's our. We're in discussion on it, it's on the agenda, and that's discuss.
right. Marcy, I think,
Bring up those things at that time. if we want.
right. Marcy and superintendent, I think, worked on that statement that is read by the president or whoever's sitting in that seat or prior to comment, so that's more clear.
I think it's always just a good reminder that, city councils, county commissions, boards of education, the meetings are meetings for those organizations and they're held in public. And for the public to be able to view and witness and watch, but they're not necessarily held in public for the public to be participants in, only during the public comment time. I think that always You know, it's irritating, you know, I've sat in the audience, like 6 times. But that's just not the way our government works in cases of local, you know, type of organizations, so.
I think something
We on the board of directors, there are many districts that don't allow.
Yeah.
I mean, we're,
It's a decision.
there are many not, so.
I think something we could do to model that better too as a district
Yeah.
administration is even, like sometimes our directors who attend are commenting back and
Yeah.
forth, and we need to remember to speak to them about that, and say that kind of sets the tone for the public who's watching, how we behave, so.
And I don't, tell me this, I don't think that it's wrong if we're in a meeting, we ask one of our directors.
No.
They're a resource,
Right.
but we need to make sure they're not,
Pop it up.
yeah.
It would be silly not to use them as the
Yes.
resource that they are.
Yeah, I've seen it go both ways where they're called upon and other times where.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, you know, like the superintendent said, it's been loose, and we've all done that. So, going back to my request for that, I just want to begin by expressing my sincere respect for each of you. This board has a tradition of working collaboratively and in good faith, and it's in that same spirit that I share the following regarding my request. Recently, following a board meeting, I submitted a written request to include comments I made in the June board meeting in official minutes. I was only informed yesterday that the request was not granted based on Robert's rules of order. That some of my comments were when the vote was taken and not prior to the vote. I believe this may be a sincere misunderstanding, and I'd like to respectfully clarify the legal foundation and the board precedents behind my request. Utah Code 524232A7 clearly states that written minutes of an open meeting shall include any other information that is a record of the proceedings of the meeting that any member requests to be entered into written minutes. This statute doesn't restrict when the comments were made during the meeting, when the request must be made, and does not defer to Robert's rules. In fact, Robert's rules themselves defer to state law when there's a conflict. This interpretation is also reinforced by guidance from the Utah Attorney General's Office and USBA trainings, which state that member requests like this should be honored to ensure accurate and more inclusive public records. This board has a long honored such requests, and to my knowledge, this practice has never caused a problem. Simply ensures that public record reflects what was actually said and done. Over my 15 years here, in other roles, I've served such as city mayor, BPA trustee, and on other various government, city, and state boards, I've consistently seen Robert's rules used as a guiding tool, not a rigid legal code. Like many boards, we can adapt as needed to support clarity and transparency. This isn't just about my comments, it's about preserving every member's right to be represented in our official minutes. That's a safeguard for all of us and a matter of legal compliance, transparency, and public trust. If preferred, going forward, I am open to the board adopting a consistent process for how and when board members and administrators can express their input. Perhaps limiting board members and administrator comments throughout meetings, as is done with public comment. I'm not advocating for this. However, it may give more structure without sacrificing member rights. So with this in mind, I again request that the comments made in the June board meeting that I requested in writing on June 30th be included per state law and board precedents prior to being approved tonight as the official written minutes for the June 11th, 2025 school board meeting. I appreciate your time and thoughtful consideration. So it's not a Robert's rule issue, it's more of a state law issue.
All right, we're not voting.
No, not that. I just thought it would be more respectful to read that here in the meeting. I can read it.
I understand that. Thank you for inviting. All right. Any thoughts, any more discussion?
I have a comment. I'm sorry if this brought something. You know, None of us wants to raise taxes. We've talked about this for years. All of us, none of us want to raise taxes. And Karen, when you made the comment once, I felt that it made it look like that. We don't want to raise taxes anybody. As a news journal and everybody. It's in the newspaper. And I don't want to have that included in the minutes. This is what bothers me is that posterity can look back and say, oh, well, she was the only one that didn't want to raise taxes. Everybody else did, and that's not true. That's just my opinion. And that's why it should not be.
What are minutes? I mean, I read them, but what are minutes for? Is it a verbatim, word for word? So I guess if that request is made, then the rest of us.
You have the right to make your requests, but this isn't up for debate. That's state law.
That's your interpretation of the state law.
And I
As you read that, I just,
Carol Lear, I'm happy to.
Carol Lear's retired attorney. We can talk about it.
I just, and my thinking was, is this, it's recorded. And so every word for word for the whole, from the beginning to the end of the meeting is available to anyone who wants it. And probably Karen, and I have a lot of respect for you, but probably your comment felt to us as a real throw us under the bus and hit us hard. And even if you didn't intend it, that's how it felt. And when it comes to minutes or availability to the public of what was said and what's not said, you and superintendent, if it's law, get it in there. I'm not gonna fight it. My thought when I spoke to the superintendent is that the entire meeting is recorded and every single one of us, every word we say is open to the public. So I won't fight it. I'm not gonna fight this. If it goes in the minutes, I'm done and over it and it's fine. But it might also be good for you to understand how it felt for me as a board member to walk away knowing that I should have commented, I should have made more, now we understand, and I hope that there's more discussion prior to the vote, but after the vote, that won't happen again. Because it costs, everything.
For Robert's rules, if we want it
Sure,
previous, we can. I get that.
in the future, and if it's in the minutes, so be it, I don't care. It's because anyone could read or watch that whole meeting, so I don't care if it's in the minutes, no. I wouldn't fight that. So thank you and if the interpretation is different, let's learn about it and really learn what it is. And that might take seeing two sides of the matter, right? So I think we're good with this. Unless someone else has any other.
We should get some legal advice on that.
Certainly, but not tonight. I mean, we can put that in, we can do that.
For something, yeah, because I would like to know, because I just, I was not happy with it. And I forgot to be probably 5 people, great me that I want to raise the change. It's an absolutely not true.
We got
It's absolutely not true, and it's because of the comments that we made. Apologize for that, but that's it.
And I apologize to each of you. It was not my intent to berate you. My intent was to represent the public.
Call this all illegal and unethical conduct. That was very strong.
No, I said.
And it's not illegal.
I didn't say illegal. I did not. You said
Unconstitutional.
I said it, the principles of the Constitution. Principles. of the Constitution. And I didn't call you that. I said that that's what it felt to me like. And I think, there's things that have been said other times by board members that I haven't agreed with, that have rubbed me wrong. But I take that as we're a board, and even within a family, people say things that sometimes rub you wrong. And
That's the beauty of a board, right?
and like I said, I have respect for all of you.
It was probably even more so the times, and I think we can just be done with this. I can be done with this and be totally fine, because that truly is the beauty of the board. That we see things differently. The timing of it, we know now that will never happen again, and that discussion time prior to the vote is when we get to share that discussion, right? When we get to have that happen, and I have appreciated the discussion that has happened in this meeting. because I've taken notes and I will ponder prior to August. I will think about those things. I think you are all ethical, honest, good people, trying to make good things happen for this district. We may see things completely differently, and it's okay. That's why we're a board. Superintendent, if you'll look into that, and
Glad to.
we'll just take care of that, and I'll even, I mean, I'm comfortable with the superintendent and Karen and Neil working with whoever needs to be. I agree with what's been said from Wade and Danielle. I agree personally, but I can also move on. So we have big decisions to make. And a really good dinner that's been cool. So thanks for this discussion today, and we're going to move on to our board meeting starting at 6:30.
Neil? Neil? Can you hear me?
I gotcha.
Are you gonna try to join the board meeting?
Yeah, I might need a little few extra minutes, but I'll be in before action items.
Okay, so are we WebExing you into that meeting, do you know?
Yes.
Yes, we are. Robert said yes.
We're gonna be voting in. He will be available, he'll be able to see the board meeting and
Answer questions. Okay, sounds good. Just want to make sure. Sign out. So.
Sure.